Hello and welcome to
The Off the Cuff
podcast.
I am Shaun.
And I am Deny.
You are the Trihat.
Yes, I am the tripartite trihat trihorn council of
The
triplicates. So welcome to this episode of Off the Cuff. We didn't have a plan for this one. Today has been a fuck it day for both of us, apparently.
Exactly.
Because he said, oh, I got all this stuff done today, and I'm like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to head over and I'm going to hang out for a while. And then he's here for a little bit, and I'm like, you know what, we could also do the podcast today. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And then we're like, fuck it, let's do it. Yeah, so once again, just like the last episode we recorded, we don't have a damn thing to talk about today.
Exactly.
So we're going to figure it out on the fly.
Yeah.
And also, yes, we have to get back to doing this again.
Absolutely. Yes,
producer's dildo.
exactly. So, yes, basically, today has just been rather awesome. My dryer was broken about earlier in the week. Basically, the belt broke, and so did the pulley system inside of it broke as well. So we had a repair guy come in and actually work on it, and well, yeah, cost an arm and a leg, about a good $400.
What's funny is that it all totally cost $446. What's funny is that literally, and he can attest to this. I told him, I think he called about it yesterday.
Yeah.
Or was it the day before? Either way, he called about it, said what happened, and I told him, I said, I can all but guarantee that the repair people are going to charge you somewhere between $500 and $600, because that's about half the price of a brand new washer dryer set on the bottom end of the spectrum now. And lo and behold, it cost him $446. So I was $50 to $150 off. That was it. Like,
Exactly.
I just, and I have no experience, so no reason at all to know this shit. But it's just, I feel like I just naturally have a born business brain for some reason, where I just understand the patterns enough that I'm like, you know, you just pick it up really quick. And you're like, yeah, no, I know exactly where this shit's headed.
Absolutely, yeah. These people, they're always going to charge an arm and a leg. So it's if you can get it done or have a friend to help you in the near future, trust me, do so.
Well, specifically if they know what they're doing and they also have a place where they can get those parts, and then they're also volunteering even more, or at the very least they understand how expensive it normally is, and so they're just, maybe they're not necessarily expecting it, but if they are, they arrange for like $200 instead or something. You know, like, it makes sense to do that. But I swear I did the same thing the last time when you had like the pest inspection service come in. Didn't I basically say it would be like $200, and wasn't it like around, like right around $200?
It was, yeah.
Again, no experience. I just know how this shit works somehow. I know exactly how these fucking brains of these assholes work, and I'm like, yep. Literally, like, this is just like, it's like almost like how, you know, I was just born to apparently drive, where I'm like, I'm really, ignore the accident that happened, I'm really fucking good at driving, you know, and I am too. Like, literally, that was something that my brother Mario was remarking about, because, you know, he's the kind of person who's like, when he trains people, especially with or he's with a newer driver who drives, and even sometimes if he's with a driver that he knows is not exactly the best driver, which we know one, and she's a Asian woman, so she fits the cliche to a T. Holy shit, she's literally the stereotype of an Asian woman driver. It's actually crazy. But and I've ridden that car once, and yeah, I should have been anxious and like struck, you know, nerve struck, and I wasn't. I'm just like, the fuck is she doing? You know, like, fucking goddamn, dude. Like, she'd get mad and start road raging for literally zero reason. She'd fucking, like, slam on the gas pedal and speed like a motherfucker. And then she'd do, like, last-second lane cuts in front of people, around people. And it's like, this was also funny because it was, like, maybe, I don't know, a 2-mile drive to her apartment from where we were. And it's, like, probably really more a mile and a half. That's it. and she was driving like that, and it's like, bro, what the fuck, you know?
Exactly.
It's so funny because I have a whole Dan's Dashcam Chronicles thing I have on my channel, because, you know, whether it's recording with my phone or it's recording via my poverty Dashcam, I just put, you know, these different Dashcam clips, compilation clips up there. Usually it's conversational, basically whatever the fuck we're talking about, me or my mom or myself. The things I actively outwardly observe, because I always am talking, even if I'm by myself. Like, I'll think out loud, or I'll process stuff out loud, or I'll almost talk as if I'm talking to that person, even though I know they aren't hearing me, or, you know, whatever. It's just the way I've always operated my whole life. But it's super funny because I have that, and in that, the most common thing you probably ever hear me fucking remark about is exactly that kind of driving, where it's like just random suddenly cutting people off, and like trying to, because they act like they're like, I don't know, trying to drive like 200 miles, and they have such a harsh deadline that like they have to go 100 plus or something, you know, and they have to like cut everyone off and dart through like yellow lights right when they're turning red or whatever. And it's like everyone drives like that, it seems like. And I'm like, bro, this is how you fucking kill yourself behind the wheel. Like, this is how most wrecks happen, is you assholes. And yet I actually, thinking about it, I've literally been a passenger in the front seat of a car of somebody who drives exactly with that mentality, and like everything pisses them off. And it's just like, for fuck's sake, what the fuck was my point for mentioning that? I don't remember anymore.
No idea.
Oh no.
Also, right now, I just wanted to put this out there for anyone who is following our channel. I'm in the process of writing a book. I'm about 10 chapters in for the rough draft. My buddy over here is going to edit it, actually. Yeah, copy edit, yes. And basically basically the book in and of itself is about polygamy and why it needs to be done in Torah compliant communities, essentially.
Yep. And again, speaking of that kind of stuff, just as a reminder to reminder. Why did I say reminder like that? Reminder. Just as a reminder. Just as a reminder to everybody at home. I am a proud atheist, agnostic atheist officially, but you know.
Yeah.
And then this guy is a devout Jew.
Yes.
He's got the juice.
Yes.
So yeah. He's got the Bernie Sanders syndrome. No.
Exactly. Yes, I got the Bernie Sanders syndrome.
And I am Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message. You always have to do that weird lip thing he always does when he concludes a sentence. You can't just say, I am Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message. You gotta go, I am Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
Anyways, yeah, I am the Jew here, the religious Jew. He's the atheist. And basically, when I'm talking about Torah compliant communities, what I'm talking about is basically people that are observant to the Torah, basically sort of in my faith area, essentially. What it is it's for a lot of people who are technically in he's taken off his hats. It's for the Torah compliant communities, and basically there's a lot of people inside of Torah compliant communities, well, my faith in that regard, who basically don't necessarily, who haven't let go of their Christian baggage.
There's a lot of people who have converted, but they're not like technically fully converted. They're pseudo converted, which that's true like across so many different religious communities. It doesn't matter if it's the big three or not, or what sect of each of them it might be, because like it's always going to be hard to leave behind your former, you know, habits and programming and teachings and everything, because you've had it repeated to you so many times, you know.
Exactly.
So same with interpretations of your religious manuscripts or whatever else. Yeah, it's very difficult to do that. I think actually that's funny, because that's literally how most like former witnesses, Jehovah's Witnesses, or most former Mormons are as well, as they have that same struggle, but at least in their case they recognize it and they're like, fuck, you know, which I think is why they've well, I know it's a part of the reason why, in the US at least, they've been actively developing a specialized form of therapy for people who have left Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and Scientology, but like dominantly using Jehovah's Witnesses, because they're the ones of the three that are leaving by far the most and are losing the most members every year. So there's the most people that are coming out of it, and then the most like active in terms of seeking out trauma therapy, because they're wicked traumatized by not the wicked worldly world that they've left into, but rather the exact same reason, but in reverse, because of how much they fearmonger against everything like that, and that's all they've ever known. And so it's so insular, so they really do believe what they always fearmonger against, which is like, oh, you're never going to find any friends, everyone's going to backstab you, nobody's trustworthy, everyone's going to fuck you over, because the only people who will are God's true people, and that's Jehovah's Witnesses. That's your heavenly family, your brothers and sisters. So you know, and then that's their way to try to get you to come back, because they also then use it to gaslight you, to guilt trip you and everything else, because it will feel isolating and alienating for a long time, because they literally shun you, they isolate you completely, they ice you out. Yeah. I mean, that's why I have a video that's literally from one of their big, I think it was the 2025 convention, summer convention. So it's the big to-do that they have all these visitors from that don't believe in it come to. It's like their big feature. If it's not the memorial, that's like their second biggest thing. And their whole shtick was like, there's a bunch of different things, but one of the most fucked up, but to me it was the most fucked up part. It might have actually been the annual meeting, but was they had this testimony from this Jehovah's Witness who's like in his 40s or 50s now, but he's literally actively having like a very emotional roller coaster of a time, retelling how he had to abandon his dad at 8 because Jehovah would have wanted him to do that, and they required him to do it because you ice out your father and kick him out of your life permanently as an 8-year-old, because he's an evil, wicked, worldly man, because he left Jehovah's Witnesses, and so he's poisoning your spirituality and everything. He's dangerous. He's a tool of Satan and his demons now, So, it's just like, Jesus Christ, no pun intended.
So, dude, there's something there that actually, that you're sort of touching on, that is very near and dear to my, if you will,
old black non-existent part. Oh wait, no, that's mine.
Well, what I sort of coin as my what is it called? My spirit animal. All right.
Yeah.
I call it my spirit animal in this regard, because the fact is, there's one thing that drives me up a wall, in regards to religious observance, is it's that type of mentality. I'm not kidding. That type of mentality, I literally look at it as if it's superstition. I call it superstition, because what ultimately what they're saying is that their existence is the thing that is going to change your worldview, your entire life. Now, this whole that whole topic in and of itself can go down so many different topics, like what was it called, what is well, basically, for instance, like the idea of works, or what is considered that their behaviors are going to be that of a, what was it called, influencer by Satan and his demons and all of that stuff. You know what I mean? Yep. That whole ordeal, that gaslighting, I actually think that
it's a favorite tool, especially of Christian sects. Yeah.
So I believe that there is some merit to it, but also at the exact same time, there's a lot of misnomers regarding it.
So were you actually saying there that you actually think there is some merit to gaslighting sometimes?
All right, let me explain.
Because I need context.
Okay. So what I'm meaning ultimately is, all right, so what, basically there's one thing that I'm firmly of the mindset of
Right.
is what was the guy's name? Trump, in and of itself.
Yeah.
Trump, he's not a religious person by no stretch of the imagination.
He
If any,
markets himself as such, but I
exactly.
don't think anybody with a functioning brain cell believes.
Well,
that.
no shit. To me, he's a secularist. So
I wouldn't even call
ultimately,
him that. He's just an idiot.
dude, I will call him a secularist, and you know
He's an
why?
idiot in a suit. That's all he is.
Well, dude, I will call him a secularist because of the fact that he is well, dude, I mean, how the hell do you get to that position without having some form of genius in your head?
I wouldn't agree with that.
Well,
I would say that you have to have. You could say that. I would say that you have to have a certain kind of sinister cunning, where it's basically it's ill-intended cunning, ill-used cunning.
yes.
Because you know that you are cunning and you can use it in a good way, but you're going to use it to manipulate instead.
Well, okay, all right, bad example. Okay, better example, people inside of what were they called? Universities, professors.
Okay, what about them?
Quite frankly,
Comparison?
what's the comparison?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that drives me up a wall when it comes to professors in universities is they teach you that, and they present a context from, they present the whole ordeal about faith in and of itself, that out of context in that regard. And basically one of the things that drives me up a wall is most of the time they don't even know what they're talking about.
I feel like that's like 90% of all human population.
Fair enough.
Everybody thinks they know
Fair enough.
something about what they don't. Usually.
Well, still, nevertheless, I mean, if they were to go up against a what was it called, a scholar for that matter, they would be they would be raked through the coals. Essentially, that's the point.
Yeah.
People.
I don't see what that has to do with Trump, though.
It has nothing to do with Trump. Forget Trump. Trump is he was a bad example. But the professors in that regard, in place of Trump.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, what happens is in universities, most of the time, people just go in there and just have sex indiscriminately because they've lost their faith.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think a lot of times it's not that they lost their faith. I think it's the fact that they used that as a way to get out of it.
Yes.
Because most people are born into their faith, they don't adopt it.
True.
So they never really believed in it. They were told they had to believe in it because their parents said so.
Exactly.
Or their family said so.
Exactly. But I mean, you can imagine why certain people do not want to put their kids in universities or colleges in that regard.
Yeah. Well, it's the same the other way around,
So,
obviously.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, to me, when it comes to a university, you're I'm sorry, you're going there to spend like what, 50,000, 70,000 a year, and then basically you owe debt. Oh no, sorry,
I think it's the
total.
Term, yeah.
The whole term, 70,000 you owe.
Depends on where you're going to, how
Yes.
much it gets, how expensive it gets, and also which classes you're opting into.
Or yeah, basically, let's say you become a philosophy major, you're gonna spend upwards of a lot of money.
I have no idea how much they would be charging for that, because I feel like it's a low demand course.
Dude, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Like, how many even philosophy-based fucking jobs exist? I feel like basically.
Dude, that's the point. That's the point. No philosophy jobs exist.
What you're saying, I think what he's saying here with that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they choose those kinds of classes specifically because it's an empty class that they don't have to give a fuck about, because they don't actually want to pass it, because they don't want the degree, because they never went into college for that reason in the first place.
Exactly.
Or university if you're overseas.
Exactly.
Yeah, I figured that's what that was. On the Superstition front, though, and it's funny because my whole family has always called it that. Especially, well, I say my whole family, my whole mom's side of the whole of my mom's side of my family has always referred to it, especially because of her dad, who, ironically, I think I've referenced in an episode.
Yes.
Was also a well-known pedophile in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And a molester of his own kids, and family members. But anyway, I suppose this goes to kind of prove a point that, like, no matter how fucked up in the head some people are, they can still have some actually like useful and actually good, intelligent like observations and information.
Absolutely.
Which feels contradictory. Doesn't obviously always will feel uncomfortable, but I feel like unlike most people, you have to push yourself through that discomfort to recognize like because everyone's complex.
Exactly.
They're not just they're the only sum of this one part that I want to focus on because I don't like them anymore because they did this or something, you know. Exactly. Anyway, so my point for bringing him up is he always called superstitions stupidstition or stuperstition. So you either have to be stupid or in a stupor to believe in it.
Exactly.
And I to this day fucking love that. And I adopted it really quickly. And most of my family doesn't carry it now, but they still remember it. And so like it's me and my mom predominantly, and I think my cousin Finn also, she does the same thing. She calls it stupor or stupidstition because it's fucking ridiculous to believe in. And it's funny because it's the internet, right? So naturally, if there's enough people that are like of a certain group and demographic, especially societally and mindset wise, they're gonna be mad hearing that because they're like, "How dare you?" Because that's like extremely black, French rooted black and influenced black culture, like Haitian and Jamaican and all these different places from Africa or whatever. Like they so many of the societies are diehard superstitious people.
Dude,
but it's especially France. I'd say it really was. I would say France influenced it more than anything, including in Africa, because they owned like half of Africa for a long time.
Well, dude,
or like 60%. It's ridiculous. Man. Fuck the French. There are only two kinds of people I can't stand in this world.
I knew you were going to pull that up.
Those who are intolerant of other people's cultures. And the French.
This is what we call an oxymoron. I'm the oxy, he's the moron.
He's the oxy who made me the moron. Too much oxy for my
yes. But let me tell you something else, man, and this is really quick to point out. The one of the things that is I'm a biblical scholar in a manner of speaking, all right? So one of the things that I got loads of books on right here in my phone, actually, is there were practices that go all the way back to the time of Moses and all of that stuff. Stuff that I literally believe that gave birth to stupidstitions like that.
Yes.
And basically, in and of itself, well, for instance, what they did was there were people like the, what were they called? Diviners. What they would do is they would take, they would slay an animal, pull out its entrails and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And if the entrails made some sort of a shine here or did this or whatever and all of that stuff, that was the God, supposedly the God speaking to you.
Yeah. I feel like that might be how we got the depictions of so many different like Lovecraftian kind of creatures.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's how it eventually led to like some zombie
concepts
of like the weird flesh walls and stuff that would like move and ooze every so often.
Exactly. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that whole thought pattern, it didn't just start there in the times of Moses. It literally went all the way throughout time, man, even into Greece, for Christ's sake. And they would do that in order, they would do this for their sacrifices and all of that stuff. They would come up with uses for their animals that they slayed, including humans, for that matter. Because, let's face it, one of the things that they did was they basically used human sacrifice. That was one of their ordeals. But the fact is that I wouldn't be surprised if every other major society that rose up that was quote unquote pagan in that regard, that did that sort of stuff, they started a movement with that. And it came as a result of, and it started what was it called? A thought pattern in our minds by saying that any association with this person who is considered evil or whatever makes you evil or whatever.
Yeah.
And why is that a thing? Because they know the transformation occurs essentially, or change. It's not as black and white as people think that it is.
Just practically, when you just think about it with even the slightest shred of common sense, like obviously superstition is incredibly stupid to even believe in. It's actually funny because I really do actually enjoy listening to from time to time Stevie Wonder's Superstition. And the funny thing is that he's literally actually, if you listen to the lyrics carefully, that's what he's doing. He's actually pointing out how illogical and stupid superstition really is. Yet people still want to cling to it for some reason, even when they know, because they're intelligent enough to observe it and be like, this doesn't make any sense. They're like, I'm going to still cling to this,
Exactly.
And so actually what's funny is my brain naturally already on its own goes and says stupid stition instead of super, what was it? Yeah, I think it was like superstition. Writing on the wall, whatever. And so instead it replaces it with stupid.
Superstitious.
Yeah. It is actually a pretty good song.
But the fact is, though, man, when it comes down to it, this whole ordeal about superstitions in that regard, man, I'm not kidding, man. I literally believe that whole mindset of saying that this physical thing, like coming in close proximity, affects your what was it called? Affects your behavior in that regard. Okay, maybe if you hang around them and your belief system is a lot like theirs or whatever, yes, that can happen, but that depends on how strong your mindset is.
What's interesting is you went to that point, which then makes me think about the quantum stuff again, which you've talked about before, because they know for a fact that like just you don't even have to be in the same room as somebody.
Yeah.
And they do literally have an impact on you, your mood, your energy, everything.
Well, no doubt.
So, like, if you suddenly experience a weird, like, you feel like, and you notice that you have a sudden shift in, like, your comfort level or, like, your thought processing or, feelings or whatever else, or emotional state, it's almost guaranteed because there is somebody else, whether they're within eyeshot or not, that's nearby that has a strong enough, electromagnetic vibration that is emanating far out from them to where it impacts you, and your field is impacted and interacting with theirs. Yeah. And so, like, it's literally been proven so many times relentlessly that this is literally how that works. So that's why, if you think about it on a very simple, basic thought process, an example, right? In life, most people out there, and most of you are going to obviously agree with this because you've experienced it before, is that there's just certain people that when you meet them or you see them, it somehow just completely flips your day on its head. Whether it's been a bad day and they make it great, and you suddenly feel really energized and happy again, or vice versa. You had a great day and for some reason these people show up and all of a sudden you just feel ran down, tired suddenly, and like demotivated, right?
Yes.
Everybody experiences that, multiple times, probably a month, whether they realize it, especially if they're out and about consistently.
Well, no kidding.
And so it's like, it depends on your level of awareness of yourself, basically, and like how things are changing in that moment, that you can actually prove to yourself that that is true. That literally just somebody being present, you're like, I don't know why, but I don't like how I feel around that person. Like, they showed up and I don't know what it is, but you can just pinpoint it. And it's like, this person for some reason is making me uncomfortable, a lot of people, I would argue probably more often women than men, but most people, whether they consciously or subconsciously realize it, they experience that pretty consistently. Mm-hmm. And that's because that person's vibration is not at all matching yours. And so it completely alters your own mental and emotional states. And it's literally a reality of life, and it's been proven so many different times. So in the vein of what you were saying there, what's funny is that it actually is proven that that is how that works.
Yes.
People really can do that. And then obviously you can go back to my favorite example, because there's so many different ones throughout human history, but obviously the one that everyone's going to think of and remember, especially right now, and probably for the next like 100 years, is obviously the build up to World War II with Nazi Germany and the Nazi Party, right? Because this is why I always give these examples, is because throughout human history, that's another way that people can really easily influence and impact your belief system, your thought processes, how you react to things, your emotional, literally every aspect of your life. Because, and actually it's funny, I was talking to my therapist about this literally just yesterday, because I gave it as an example. And what's funny is that he then started picking on me about it, and he's like, okay, but that's an extreme example. So like, he came to a compromise, like, just explain to me, like, what are the simple steps you're saying that it gets to that point to where you get to Nazi Germany's control level, you know, from the start. And I'm like, I was making a point of emphasis, and why I mentioned that is because I was making a point of emphasis. It took them about roughly only really 20 years. Because they really didn't form, I don't think, until like 1919. They didn't actually have an official party until I think it was 1919 or 1920. And then they didn't really come into getting any seats in the government until 21. And then they didn't get into power, I don't think, until like, I think it was like 36 or 34. And then they had their build up until obviously it was around 38, 39 is when the war technically started. But the world, aka the Western world and nations, didn't consider it to have started until they pulled themselves in. And then that was 1940. To 1944 for them, even though it also continued slightly after in 44, because they all exited, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, it's over, while everyone else that was still involved were like, no, it still continued until about 45, 46. So the point being is it took them to get to that point where they had everything that everyone thinks of Nazi Germany and World War II's launches. Literally, it took them only about 20 years to get to that point, from start to finish. Wow. Think about how short of a time span that is. 20 years from the start of when they were trying to instill this belief system and the thought process and the reactions in people, to completely controlling millions of fucking Germans and all these other people's minds, where they actually all believed in it, or they at least fainted and pretended that they did, because they went into full self-preservation mode, even though they said they cared and they didn't want any of these people to go into concentration camps or die. They obviously really didn't, because their morals slipped out from under them the moment that their families or themselves lives were threatened, because, consequences if you don't play the part, which goes into a different topic. But the point is that, like, that's why I bring that up, because it's related, because that's another how easily people can impact each other. And what is the rule of that and the foundation there? All it is, and this is the steps process, all it is really one step repeated, which is, you got to have an enemy, quote unquote, or something to fearmonger your people against as a tangible, in their minds, a tangible, actual present existing threat. So something material that's a threat to their country and or their safety or their people and their lives. And then so you create the problem. That's the problem, right? So they invent the problem, so that because they already have the solution created.
Yes.
And then that's how they do it. They create the problem so they can then give you their solution that they already created before they created the problem.
Exactly.
And presented it to you. And so what they do is they create that problem, they start preaching it to everybody, and it doesn't start necessarily super dramatic or intense, but over time they build their dramatic emphasis every single time they do a speech, or they talk about it, or they present it to people, so that way it's not just repetition. Now it's also emotional predation via intensity, increasing intensity over and over again, because then they get more and more fervorous over time, because that psychologically to your head says, and especially your primal brain, so in other words, subconsciously, not consciously necessarily, that you're going to be convinced that it's an actual real problem and a real threat to you. Because look at this guy. He's starting to act like he's genuinely fearful, and that it's a genuine life or death situation. 20 years. That's all it takes. Like, that's how easily manipulated a human mind is. And so think about that, though. See how that correlates with that whole process. Absolutely. Of that's a second way that people impact each other in that way. And so think about it with religion, especially when it's a nefariously created and or ran religion that is actually technically a cult.
Good point.
occults like Scientology, like Mormons, LDS, so Latter-day Saints, and like JWs, Jehovah's Witnesses.
Good point. But yeah, the whole ordeal in and of itself actually also brings up to mind a show that I was watching a couple of days ago. It's called the remake of The Running Man. Mm-hmm. I actually like the remake of The Running Man. Basically, in and of itself, Ben Richards, in and of itself, he basically he goes on that show voluntarily, as opposed to goes on the show because he has to. He basically goes on the show voluntarily to save his baby girl.
Yeah.
And he has lies and all of this stuff made up about him and all of that shit.
Yep.
The thing about it is that it's a dystopian era type ordeal. The show in and of itself is they've got these hunters that are hunting these runners to kill them in that regard. How in the Sam hell did they get people's moralities to that point without, for Christ's sake, man.
But you look throughout human history and you see that is reality. It happens all the time. It's happening right now. All these different, richest the rich who run the world and their little puppets and the governments, around the world are doing the same shit. They're doing it slower because they don't want us to realize what's happening in Uprise. Yeah. That's kind of the point. So they have to pace themselves with it. But they're starting to amp up the pace too, if you notice. They're starting to do so many more things at once. And they're trying to, it's like, you can tell it's a test to see how well indoctrinated everyone is, but also how, like, kind of the reaction that everyone's going to have. I mean, even the whole COVID pandemic was that. And it's ironically, you don't necessarily expect it, but it was proven even further and confirmed by the fucking Epstein files that it was all a plan, It was all a plan. Besides the fact that the World Health Organization, alongside Bill Gates, you can literally go back. There's public meetings, there is fucking videos, there's leaks, there's everything from these conferences and these talks and these presentations that they did. All the way back through like 2015, 14, and 13. Let alone 2016, 17, 18. That were all literally actively, but especially 2016 forward, is when they really got vocal and they were talking about, the next pandemic, there's going to be a pandemic. And you could just start hearing how they were talking and outlining the rules that they're going to put in place globally for what would become the COVID thing.
Exactly.
And it's just like, and that was more to test the compliance of everybody and also how easily fearmonger they'd be, so that way they can know how many people actually obeyed and were compliant, aka good little doormats. They were well manipulated and controlled and indoctrinated, and how many people actually questioned, and then how many people actually actively fucking resisted, including being willing to have their bank accounts completely emptied and, locked down permanently, like up in Canada, and even somewhat in Australia. And then obviously, same thing with being imprisoned for indefinite amounts of time with these random fucking charges they tried to trump up and create.
Shit,
over the years they were incarcerated before they'd finally get to a tribunal or something. And it's like, fuck off.
That was literally one of the things that I noticed, man. Jesus. Yes, I actually grabbed the actual mic.
That's what I noticed.
No, that is literally what I noticed. It wasn't until freaking, 2014, 2016 that things started ramping up.
A lot. Actually, you know what? That's true, because now I think about it,
Yes!
the fucking FEMA camps didn't really start in earnest until 2016 and 17?
Exactly!
And then all of a sudden the FEMA camps were like this big thing they were building. But they also were building them in specific places, and they were literally prisons. They were built identically to prisons. They're still there. They're still standing. They still exist. And they always had them in these specific places where they're next to railroad tracks. They were close to metro areas, but they're just enough outside, off of main thoroughfares, so that people wouldn't necessarily notice them. There's usually enough trees around that it kind of blocks people's views. And then on top of that, so it's kind of half hidden in plain sight type of shit.
Exactly.
They kept doing, and then on top of that, they always had these like other properties nearby that seemed empty, but or that were like abandoned. But then they had all these like 3-person, 4-person like biodegradable fucking plastic or other form coffins and shit just stacked. And it's like, now you make the connection like I just did. I didn't even think about that. That makes
Dude,
total sense. That was literal preparation. But the one main FEMA camp I always think of by default, and I always remember so viscerally and vividly, is that stupid one outside of Atlanta, because they literally put it across the railroad tracks, adjacent to the fucking Georgia Guidestones, which were 13 miles like west-southwest of Atlanta. And they had it across the railroad tracks, behind some trees. They put the FEMA camp, and then across the street was the fucking from that. But still on the other side of the railroad tracks, on the Guidestones, was the fucking stacks of coffins. And so, like, I still so vividly remember that, because it's like, you aren't gonna, do you know that was fully intentional that they put it next to the Georgia Guidestones?
Yes!
That's called fucking suggestion. That's what that is.
Yeah!
They are trying to see how many people correlate it, so that how many people they can then convince the rest of the world, if they did in fact use them, the FEMA camps and shit, from the pandemic, that they're clearly building them for, which they didn't end up ever using them, but, you know, that is correlated. So that way they can say, okay, well then these people are fucking lunatics. They're just crazy conspiracy theorists, don't listen to them, it's obviously bullshit.
Oh my god!
Then that's gaslighting, and then that might piss somebody off more, and then they might go further out on limbs, and then that makes them basically sell the point of like, oh, they're crazy conspiracy theorists, you can't believe them.
Dude, even more so than that, man. I even made another connection.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, there were movies being propagated.
Oh yeah, I know. But that was for bird flu. But yeah.
Well, dude, not just for bird flu, though, man.
Yeah.
But we're all right. So there's a movie called there was a movie that came out in the early 2000s. It was about a virus that killed off a good majority of the populace in that regard. Mm-hmm. Of the world.
And I know I'm going to also throw out 2011, I think it was. Oh, no, 2012. But I think that was climate apocalypse, wasn't it? Not a virus?
That was climate apocalypse,
yeah.
Yes.
That was an Al Gore based. I think Al Gore had like direction and writing stuff behind that, credits behind to that movie, but which is hilarious. Speaking of early 2000s, by the way.
Well, no shit. Yeah, speaking of early 2000s.
Y2K. Yeah.
But yes, the virus was called MEV1.
Okay.
And basically, it was spread through the wrong pig and the wrong bat. They came together and made an unholy marriage of a virus, and basically, basically, they made an unholy marriage, and basically it just swept right through the world's population. Quickly.
Yeah. Which, if you think about it, now that I think about it, actually, on this front, since we're on this instead, which I actually really am enjoying, if you can't tell. Now that you think about it, right? What was also so thematic during George Bush's first and second terms, especially after post-false flag of 9/11? Remember the fucking anthrax shit?
Yes!
Which is a naturally occurring compound across the entire world, by the way, in the soil. So, just for context's sake, they're acting like, oh, what's this? It's literally like cocaine, or arsenic, or fuck, what is that other one that's like, people always think of with arsenic? I hate it. I hate it not remembering. Anyway, you know, it's like that kind of thing, right? They're like, they're trying to kill us all because they have all this white powder they're putting in boxes and packages and into the letters, especially for politicians and presidents and everything. And it's like, you know, they're trying to kill all the postal workers. Who gives a fuck about postal workers in that? You know what I mean? Like, enough to be like, I'm gonna kill all of the USPS workers. Fuck those guys. How dare they deliver my mail?
Contagion.
Okay, yeah, no, that was bird flu.
No, it wasn't bird flu.
It was.
It was not.
Literally was bird flu. It literally released around the same time that fucking bird flu in America released. Because they were fucking competitors. They were. It was 100% bird flu, dude. That's what the contagion was. And I know that because I fucking watched that movie so many times. Shortly after it came out. Because I actually really liked that fucking movie. My mom, and what's funny is also, and a lot of people at home can probably attest to this, is that there was literally a divide. It was still dominated by Contagion because that was a bigger movie.
Yeah.
But there was a divide across everybody who either watched that or who watched the bird flu, you know, in America, or Pandemic in America, or whatever the fuck it's called. I think it's Bird Flu Pandemic in America. I think is the full name of it. Because they released it at the same time. They're competing films.
Okay.
And it's basically equivalent to, like, if you guys, anybody remembers, whether you do or people at home. It's, remember when Twister came out?
Yes.
A competing film called Tornado came out?
Yes.
My mom loved Tornado. We own both movies. My mom preferred Tornado. The rest of my family preferred Twister. So it's basically the same general idea, but instead it was between those two films.
Okay.
We literally own a copy of Bird Flu Pandemic in America, or Bird Flu in America, whatever the fuck its full name is called.
Okay.
Here. I've never watched it in my life, but my mom did, and that's why we have it, is because she owned it. She literally bought it because she enjoyed it so much. Because she's always been super into virology and stuff like that, too. And so she was telling me about it, and she's like, it's about, it's about bird flu and all this other stuff, and like, it's really cool. And she was describing it, and I'm like, so basically, it's like another version of Contagion. And then she literally said, yeah, it came out in whatever year it was. I'm like, that's the same year that I think Contagion came out. So they're
2011, man.
So they're
actually.
fucking competing films then, I'm like, that's what it is. That's why they sound so similar, because they were competing films. It's just that I think, like, I've seen Contagion,
I mean, for
and
crying
I
out
loved it.
loud, man. Seriously, though, man, we're talking 9 years apart from the actual pandemic.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm sorry, but...
Well, yeah, that's when that movie released, yes. But, like, the whole bird flu scam or whatever, or sham, or, like, fear-mongering advertising campaign didn't really begin in earnest until, like, 2006-ish.
Yeah.
But here's the funny thing about that, though, because it was going to continue, right? So you had the anthrax thing, you had bird flu,
Yeah.
and you also had the swine flu. Remember that?
Yes, I remember.
But between swine flu and anthrax was the whole mad cow disease.
Yes.
Remember how even to this day now everybody knows that it was so overblown it's fucking ridiculous?
Yes.
Because mad cow disease doesn't really actually impact humans very much at all.
Exactly.
Even if they're immunocompromised, it doesn't really do much to people. Whereas swine flu was the second attempt at trying to get the mad cow disease idea into people's heads and make them actually genuinely curious and be like, this is a terrible thing. And they did intensify that disease. Because, obviously these are lab-altered viruses. So that they can make them, more strong or do certain things that they want them to do. It's basically playing Plague Inc. in real life is what it is. Like, so technically the game Plague Inc. is based off of real life lab experiments and creations and shit. It's so stupid. So instead of just simulations, since like 2000, they've been just like in labs creating actual like potentially deadly viruses and basically bioweapons.
Well, dude, that's what I'm thinking, man. Jeez.
But the funny thing is that so swine flu was their attempt at pulling it off, since they didn't successfully do that with mad cow disease because it fizzled so fast. So they're like, well, fuck. So they went with swine flu, and it's basically just your everyday common cold is what it turned out to be. A little harsher than the usual, one, but it didn't really hurt almost anybody, So it's like, because it's like, oh yeah, this is sniffles, congestion, sore, scratchy throat, all the usual shit, cough. Literally the typical cold. And it's like, cool,
Cool.
Didn't work.
No.
There is some people, though, that they did succeed in indoctrinating to where to this day, they're like, no, the swine flu was really fucking intense. It was really bad. And I'm like, and so they're like still kind of fearful of it, and I'm like, it was literally no better, worse than the fucking cold. Like, I don't know what planet you lived on through that, but
Yeah, I have no freaking idea what planet you live
and so
on.
then immediately after the swine flu thing, as it was starting to finally fizzle out, then they really started to amp up the bird flu thing, and that's why, swine flu was mad cow disease was early middle 2000s, swine flu was late 2000s, and then late 2000s, early 2010s. Well, actually, even now technically is very bird flu heavy. But because that didn't work out, like they were trying to sell it as like, oh, we're about to have the H5N5 or H5N8 or H5N9 or whatever, like the worst, most deadliest ones.
Yeah.
They caused
Eventually
catastrophic,
SARS.
explosive blow. Oh yeah, I forgot about the SARS, the actual original SARS thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That was, I think, early 2000s and mid 2000s.
Yes, it was.
I swear that was literally around the same time that they had the whole anthrax panics.
Exactly, man.
Being fear-mongered about. Yeah, it was the same time. And I know that, and I remember that, because that's why when they said SARS-CoV-2, I'm like, wait a minute. why does this feel like Y2K to me? Why does this feel like
Exactly!
me and my sister got the mystery pox in Sun River?
Mystery box!
You know, in 2002. Or was it 2000? I think it was 2002, but maybe it was 2003. I can't remember. It was 2002, 2003. Yeah, it would have been 2002, 2003. So it was 2003. Winter break 2003. We came down with this, like, it hammered the fuck out of us. You know, we're both usually really robust, really healthy kids.
Yeah.
We rarely got sick. Maybe we got, like, the most common things we ever got were colds. That was basically it. And so that was, like, notable to my parents and to us, because we're like, wow, this is fucking terrible. Like, we got through it, obviously. Went to a nature path that was there, and he just, this is the most fun part for me about this, is that, says, while, you know, the SCAR scare, the anthrax scare is going around, like, literally the peak of fever pitch of both, and we get prescribed this thing called Abernax. Abernax anthrax. Think about how simple that is. And then also, again, anthrax is a natural compound in the earth, and every single place on earth has it in the soil, right? So we interact with it all the time. What does naturopathy do? It takes shit from nature, natural compounds and plants and everything else,
Oh my god.
to heal you. And so, anthrax, Abernax. You know what fucking Abernax looks like? A fine white powder. Identical to, literally identical. You could not, if you put them side by side, you would not be able to tell the difference visually between Abernax and anthrax. And so my family immediately started laughing and just intentionally calling it anthrax. So did you take your anthrax today? You know? It was so funny. And so to this day, me and my mom love going back and forth calling it anthrax and not Abernax. The other thing they gave us was Unda. It was like these drops. But dude, like, we were absolutely like bedridden and infirm, if I can use a paradox interactive term from like CK2 or CK3. Bedridden and infirm. And like, they basically, genuinely, me and my sister were that way. Like, we could basically do nothing. And we were just so debilitated by it. You know, we were slowly, you could tell we were slowly starting, our bodies were doing what it was supposed to. So we're slowly kind of getting through the phases and the steps of your immune system doing what it's supposed to kick it out.
Yes.
But it was such a slow, like,
Process.
viciously slow process that was, again, of concern, because, like, our immune systems normally never touched anything like it wasn't, it just got through shit. And we, like, never usually got sick, so it was like, damn. And so they gave us those two things. Within a week, we were perfectly good. And like, it just did everything you needed it to. And it made it even funnier to us at that point. Whereas, literally, I think, I would have as a kid. So I would have been like 9 years old, basically, at this point. I would have been like, what do you think? Should we put some Abernax on like an envelope, or like, what's
What the hell, dude?
send it to the Capitol, send it to the White House, just to see, for shits and giggles, just to really make them panic and be like, no, it's actually a homeopathic and naturopathic drug to cure illnesses. It is close. It looks identical. You couldn't discernibly visually tell the difference, obviously. But one might kill you in enough compound. The other one will just heal you really fucking fast if you do. If you take it in enough quantity. Dude! And their names are similar: Abernax, Anthrax.
What the hell? Dude?
So it's fucking great. But yeah, so that's that. Now that I think about it, you're right. Yeah, the SARS, the original SARS virus, was like the fever pitch at the same time they were doing the anthrax thing.
Man.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, isn't that funny though, that sequence of how everything at once? And so we learned about this thing called Abernax that literally was basically anthrax.
Dude, during that time period, man.
So funny.
During that time period. So yes, I mean, the fact is that he's going over. the fact is that it basically was during that first 20 years of it, man. What was it called? From the early 2000s, when I was in high school, man, it goes, they do one right after another.
Yep.
One right after another. One right after another. And then all of a sudden we get to 2020.
Yeah.
So it leads me to the question, man, that they were, what was it called? They were trying to see what stuck. So, I mean, seriously, I literally believe that they were trying to take this work in labs, see what's stuck. I mean, for crying out loud. That is so dystopic. Oh my gosh. All of this goes right back to the what my partner over here said. Basically, it this whole ordeal ensures compliance, it ensures control, it ensures, quote unquote, your silent, obedient consent. The fact is that it boggles my mind, man. It brings to mind this analogy. You take a frog, you put it inside of a pot that's already cold, and you slightly increase the temperature. Just slightly increase it. And you do so again and again and again. Over time, the frog's just going to sit there until it dies, because to it, the temperature was the same that it was. It got used to it over time. But the morality gets progressively worse. In this case, what I'm drawing parallels between is temperature is morality. In and of itself, as they can increase the temperature slowly, the temperature, or rather, temperature equals morality, therefore the morality gets to where they want it to be. So it's sort of disconcerting, if you will. What you talked about in addressing the quantum physics,
Or just quantum science in general, yeah.
Quantum science in general, that is actually rather interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it actually brings, I actually believe in that aspect in and of itself, that a person's intrinsic nature can actually affect your spirit in that regard.
Yeah.
So
for those who do not understand that whole quantum thing that we talked about a little bit earlier, I should say I mentioned earlier, is that I just realized also this was supposed to be up here. I didn't think about that. Hang on a second. We're a mess. I nearly fell. Things are going amazing. I'm apparently drunk, and I don't know how, because I'm also sober entirely. Anyway. Right. So, with the quantum thing, how it works is literally that literally, and I mean literally, every single thing in existence is energy. It's just a field of energy waves, energetic waves. So therefore, vibrations.
yeah,
So everything has its own unique frequency, its own unique vibrations, right? Everything, and that's what makes it have its own unique properties. So that is exactly how and why, at its core base taproot, if you will, that everybody impacts each other, whether they even realize they exist or not, whether they realize that they're even in, if they might be in the same room, they might be next to each other, they might be, 3 buildings over. They literally can and often do have direct impacts on each other's states, because, obviously the vibrations are all going to affect each other,
yes,
like any energetic field would and does. So as a result, we all impact each other because of that. Because we're all, literally everything in existence is nothing but, at its core base, energy waves or vibrations, frequencies. So, which is fun, because if you think about it, technically, that means that there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to phase through walls and walk through buildings, like literal, actual physical, like, things. We could walk through a mountain, technically. It's just that our brains and our minds aren't there to be able to figure out how to do that.
yes,
Because that's why, and again, this goes back to what we've mentioned in an episode before talking about this. That's exactly how and why certain people know how they can literally fucking manipulate and bend and destroy or throw things with their minds, just with basic focus, right? There's literally people who can literally bend a spoon just by looking at it.
Yeah.
There's people who can throw things across the room And there's people who can literally make things explode or break or crack and fracture. It's literally been documented many times. Like, it's the same thing with, obviously, therefore, the Nepalese monks and the Bhutanese monks up there in Bhutan and Nepal, or Nipple, as I like to call Nepal, because I am a fucking child. But anyway, I'm churlish and insubordinate. But yes, apparently I might be a Aaron, now that I think about it.
Son of a bitch! You done messed up, Aaron! Insubordinate and churlish.
Anyway, but the point... Key and Peele references. Fucking come on, man. Sorry. I'm just like going through it in my head now. I'm watching it and listening to it in my head. Anyway, I'm being entertained by my own internal video box.
Exactly.
Right, so there's monks up there, though. That's how they've been documented, and they know that they literally, it's proven, they do this. They literally are completely unaffected by the weather. So they can be out there in a literal, true whiteout where you can't see 2 inches past the tip of your fucking nose up in the high Himalaya. And they are fine, just in their usual robe. That's it. So literally, they're basically naked, and they have this thin robe on. And that's literally in their sandals, and that's literally it. And they're sitting, to start, obviously, they sit down in that snow, feet of snow and ice, on the top of the fucking world, pretty much, and they are untouched by it. They're fine. They literally do not get frostbite. They do not get hypothermia. They don't get touched by it. It can be literally, the wind chill could be, negative 70 up there in a blizzard, and they're fine. And it's been documented that's the case. Like, their bodies are completely unaffected. It's totally fine. And then it's also the same for them is with their levitation. They literally fucking levitate when they meditate. So when they get into the peak of their meditative state, they're literally fucking floating like anywhere between like a few inches to a foot off the ground while they're going through that peak of their meditation state. It's literally been documented in every mode multiple times. It's super fucking cool. But it just goes to show you that these people are more in tune and better understand different levels of frequency and vibrations, and how to be able to use them to their advantage to be able to do these things that everyone else says, oh, that still has to be impossible. It has to be bullshit because fuck that. I can't do it. How the fuck do you rationalize it? And you technically can't, because it's beyond rational reason, because it's literally quantum and it's beyond human comprehension. It's literally energy and understanding it, not a literal tangible physical worded thing, or material thing. So it kind of defies human nature, but it's really fucking cool, and it shows that we could unlock these levels of things, but how the fuck are we supposed to figure out how to do it?
Exactly.
That's the problem, but that's where we can find the keys to do these different things. So literally we have no logical reason why we can't phase through a wall. That's why it has been documented that things can phase through physical things like the walls and stuff, even if it's concrete and it's like 3 feet thick. But like the how is how they're always stuck on, because it's like that shouldn't be possible what we saw. It feels schizophrenic to the average person, even the academic. It's like I feel like I need some sort of antipsychotic, because how the fuck did we confirm that just happened, but we have no basis to understand or to even begin to fathom how the hell it did. We just know it did. We've confirmed it did. We documented it. But what's the point of that if we can't fucking explain it? Like, what the fuck is happening,
What the fuck is that?
Because it's part of the study, right? You're trying to figure it out and come to understanding, but it's not really possible.
Yeah.
So you do feel schizophrenic, because it's like, how in
shit.
the absolute fuck? Because it literally defies human nature and human minds. So it's the antithesis. It's literally the polar opposite of it. So it's like, how in the hell, does that even work? Like, what the fuck? And so that's where the spiritual stuff, so non-religious spiritual stuff and all that stuff kind of comes into play too. It's for that same reason, right? That's what the monks practice. Yeah. So it proves there is very true substance to it. But my thing is, it's fun, but it's also frustrating, because it's like, okay, so then we should be able to walk through fucking walls. It's just that we don't understand how to manipulate our own frequency and vibrational, energy waves yet to be able to do that, or theirs, right?
So, okay, man, basically in one of our episodes, we discussed this as well. I think it's episode 4, maybe 5. Basically, we were talking about the spiritual aspect.
Yeah.
Basically, one of the things that I'm realizing more in that regard is that there's more to the Eastern mysticism, and technically, I would actually venture to call Judaism in that frame of mind a form of mysticism.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, basically, they both operate from the same premise of, what was it called? Philosophy. What is your thought on that? What's your take?
I would say that there is more to that than quote unquote Western, or I would actually argue kind of technically, I guess it would make it biblical or Mosaic religions, because, or Abrahamic, I guess they call it Abrahamic, but then they have the Mosaic law for Abraham. Anyway, but the point, I don't really care about figuring that part out. But the point is, is that I would say that yes, they have more to it, more substance and legitimacy. However, in contrast, all the modernized, post Dead Sea Scroll religions, I feel like, are pretty much have way less validity to them in that regard, because they, even at the quantum level, you can't find almost anything with it. And it's just, instead, all you find is a typical human, just constant arguments and debates over interpretations and understandings of literally every single individual fucking passage in, like, the Bible, an example, or whatever. And then also things that Jesus supposedly said or did. And, like, that's even hotly debated about, like, what the fuck was this meaning? Or what the fuck did he actually mean? Or what the fuck is this? Or what the fuck is that? So that's why you get so many different interpretations amongst them as well, right? So it's just really frustrating. It's like, so basically, one is very human, and the other one is esoteric, basically. So the older, more pagan religions, especially if it's more Eastern, really are more legitimate because they actually have at least substance in the quantum side of things. Because they're not so human anymore. They're like dealing with the esoteric or the existential instead. Which is the outside of you, right? It's the actual world itself, not so much the human aspect, or the material.
So here's where basically we're gonna have a sort of dispute. All right. So basically,
my fucking small wooden bat and just
yes, we're gonna start beating each other senselessly. So okay, what I'm talking about here in terms of Christianity, and hell, let me pull this up here. All right.
I might purchase a rubber chicken at some point just to yank out suddenly, and so without you expecting, just whap you across the head with it.
That would be cool, dude. Okay. Got questions. Okay.
Ask Jeeves.
Got questions. Mosaic Law.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of the Mosaic Law? From Got Questions. This is a typical Christian website here, all right?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to read it, all right?
Mm-hmm.
The Mosaic Law was specifically given... I don't care. I don't care about your video.
I want to read it, not hear you say it.
Yes, I want to read it, not hear you say it. The Mosaic Law was specifically given to the nation of Israel. Exodus 19. Leviticus 26:46, Romans 9:4. It was made up of 3 parts: the 10 Commandments, the ordinances, and the worship system. That includes the priesthood, the tabernacle, the offerings, the festivals. The purpose of the Mosaic Law was to accomplish the following. 1. Reveal the holy character of the eternal God and to the nation of Israel. Leviticus 19:2 and 20, verses 7 and 8. Set apart the nation of Israel as distinct from the other nations. Exodus 19:5. Reveal the sinfulness of man. Although the law was good and holy, Romans 7:12, it did not provide salvation for the nation of Israel. No one can be declared righteous in God's sight by works of the law. Rather, through the law, we become conscious of our sins. 4. Provide forgiveness through sacrifices/offerings. Provide a way of worship for the community of faith through yearly feasts. 6. Provide God's direction through the physical and spiritual health of the nation. 7. revealed to humanity that no one can keep the law, but everyone falls short of God's standard of holiness. This realization causes us to rely on God's mercy and grace. When Christ came, he fulfilled the law with his death and paid the penalty for our breaking it. There are a number of things in that I take issue with. Okay, so the first one, for starters, is they say that no one can fulfill it in that regard.
Yeah. I think it was exactly that one.
Yeah. Revealed the sinfulness of man. Although the law was good and holy, it did not provide salvation. Pause. Salvation.
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
For most Christians, it means, in other words, you're going to be going to heaven.
So
in other words,
exactly,
salvation because you've been saved. Is what salvation.
Exactly. Well, to a Jew, salvation in and of itself does not mean that.
Right.
Basically, to a Jew, basically is that sins in and of themselves cause, what are they called? Natural disasters. Something along the lines of...
That does actually fit with the Eastern kind of paganism, but especially the pagan Eastern stuff. I would call more traditionally pagan, but still Eastern as well, because they have a good mix of both.
Exactly.
So, like, because that's very almost Greek / Nordic epic kind of aspect, versus also still containing, though, roots in the Eastern, more esoteric stuff. That is extremely bizarre to combine those two, but it works, I guess.
Well, basically, they did that because, and this is why I'm constantly preaching about Greco-Romanism.
Right.
Greco-Romanism, in and of itself, basically, there was in 5th century BCE, essentially. Yeah. Or no, sorry, 6th century. 6th century.
So 500.
Yeah. There was a guy by the name of Plato, a philosopher.
Right.
He basically invented his own brand of philosophy. And to be honest, we don't even know if that's even fact. It could have been the manufactured by Greco-Roman people. So who knows? The fact is, though, that it was thought process by which things were not only physical.
Yeah.
That basically there was something behind the physical manifestation. Right. That basically Plato, what he basically manufactured was he manufactured a system by which people brought order to chaos. And his whole worldview of chaos was, say you had a field or whatever that's just laying there. Yeah. To him, that's chaos. Yes. To him, that's literally chaos. So the people who were, quote unquote, the higher intellect.
I want to ask a question about that. Was it because he felt it was chaotic because of the fact that it wasn't being used?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I could sort of understand that, because a lot of people feel the same way today.
Yes.
Which is interesting, because I've always been like, that's kind of weird, because then at the same time, you have a place like ours. And it's a lot of people say this is chaotic because it's super dirty and disorganized. And it's like, actually, to me, it's just what we call lived in.
Yes.
It looks like it's lived in. It doesn't look dirty anyway, but it looks lived in. You know?
But, well, basically, he said ultimately that the people, he came up with a parable in and of itself. Yeah. The parable in and of itself was that the people who were inside of a cave or whatever, that they were caged by their own mental beliefs. In and of itself. So, in and of it, when it comes to people who were caged by those beliefs, they wouldn't bring order to chaos, which we already addressed.
Yeah.
They would actually bring disorder because of their faulty belief structures.
Right.
I think that is bullshit. To me, Plato was a moron, actually. And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, but you know what? I don't care. Yeah. The fact is that existence is existence, and people bring order to chaos, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah. This is so funny. What did you say? People are people, or what? No, you said something different before that. That was that you just like whatever it was that, and I'm like, I just immediately was like that. It's basically saying nothing, but okay. My point is, people are existent. I rest my case. No, yeah, well, you could do that with anything, though, right? Because at the end of the day, you also have, say, chaos. What is chaos? Well, if you ask that question, everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people will have a very different beliefs about what classifies as that, right?
Exactly.
Same with, I guess, the opposite. So it would be order or whatever, or
still,
control, you know.
Who's to say whether or not they were right or not? I mean, basically, that's just a belief structure.
Right, I know, yes. But, like, my point is that you could do that with literally anything.
Well, no kidding.
Because everyone is unique, individual living beings. So everyone's going to have a completely different experience, and therefore everyone's going to have a completely different understanding from each other of various different
Fair enough.
concepts, words, phrases, so on and so forth. I mean, like, you could do that with any topic as well, if you want to go up to a topic level, because, like, literally the topic we're talking about now.
Yes.
Or science topics, like we've talked about in multiple episodes now, or, you know, same with, like, me in transit, right? Because I'm a huge transit whore, so, like, naturally, / urbanist, even though I hate urbanist, being in an urban area.
Well,
but,
dude, I mean...
But the point is, you know, there's, like, a war zone in even just that topic alone, because, like, nobody fucking agrees on what good transportation is, apparently, and it's just like, or what the best modes are, and so on and so forth, and it just degrades so fast because everyone has a different belief and perspective and opinion on that, you know. And it's like, and yeah, you might all technically know something and you know, a decent amount of what you're talking about, but at the same time you're also equally idiots because you're just fucking squabbling about, you know, technically kind of differences that are only mattering somewhat.
My point. That's my... Well, man, I'm sorry, but that's my point. That's ultimately my point. If no one is an expert, then... All right, so to Plato, you couldn't bring order to chaos if you weren't schooled or knowledged or whatever. Well...
Intelligent, so to speak.
Intelligent, so to speak, yeah. Well, dude...
What we would call degrees.
Yes.
And titles and expert and stuff today.
Yeah, and as far as you can tell, that's a load of bull.
Quote unquote, yeah.
So
don't mean you know jack shit about what you're talking about.
Yeah, it doesn't mean jack or shit. Yeah. But the fact is that when it comes down to it, that whole belief system, he called the thing that gave it was a force, essentially. Yeah. To him, it was a force that gave inspiration to the educated. It was called the demiurge, essentially.
That sounds a lot like you could conflate that or make it akin to, you say, like, basically the educated or whatever. Like, you can conflate that to so many different other examples at that point.
I know.
Other things that people still, to this day, hold that with. Of like, well, you know... But then you have to then ask the question, like, okay, well, then what the fuck do you qualify as educated or educated enough?
Exactly.
Because everyone's going to have a different criteria and baseline for what they're going to consider it.
Exactly. But when it comes to the the demiurge in that regard, it went from a force to being a lesser subordinate god or whatever and stuff like that.
You know, actually, it's interesting is that might be one of the very first sources for, like, Aryanistic ideas. And obviously not the people of Aryans, but the Aryans people group that people think of today. So in other words, basically, you know, racial supremacists.
Well, no shit.
Because if you think about it, that literally correlates to the exact same mindset, belief system, and thought processes that views, basically, that these Aryanistic, you know, skinheads or whatever else, or Nazis have always had. Is they just are like, you know... Because it is a form of superiority complex.
It
is exactly what it fucking is, you know. And again, look throughout all human history. That's an innate trait to human beings, is that egotism, to be like, everyone has a holier than thou / superiority type of superiority complex, at least in something, it seems like. Inevitably. Because it's just, to be human is to be incredibly egotistical and ignorant. And what a hell of a combo that one is, by the
Well,
way.
no shit.
Yeah, like oh god, it's a contradiction combo, a contradictory combo, but it's so innate to humans, it's insane. But yeah, like fuck.
Well, sorry. The fact is, though, that when it comes to this whole concept, what it did was it said that this whole belief system was taken by Gnostics, essentially, in the 3rd century, and it developed over time by the church fathers. I'm not kidding, man.
I want to point this out too, because we've actually gone back and forth about Gnosticism before, or Gnostic, and what it actually is. And Gnostic, technically by its definition, it's had pretty much since the start, simply meant that you believed in a god. And that's how you get the term agnostic.
Yeah.
So in other words, one is like, Gnostic means you're extremely, like, you absolutely believe that there is a god. Yeah. Maybe you aren't saying it's like, oh, it's my god that's correct, or like, you know, you're not, so you may not even have a religion necessarily, but you absolutely believe there is a divine higher power, right? A creator, or whatever you want to call it. Whereas an agnostic, so it's just an A in front of it, as you would expect, therefore, with English especially, is, and Greek, therefore, actually, is you, or I guess Latin, technically is what it is.
Yeah.
So any Latin-based language, A automatically implies, when you apply it to the front of a pre-existing name or word,
Yes.
is that you are absent of that. You are missing it. It is not present. So in other words, it's usually indicates that / an opposite. Yes. So, and I say that / an opposite because just like, wouldn't that mean an opposite? Not necessarily. It could actually just make you neutral at that point, because you simply lack it, right? Yes. Or whatever. That's neutral. Whereas in this case for agnostics, it's kind of half between neutral and a denial, because it's like saying like, we don't argue about it if we're agnostic, because we just simply acknowledge that, hey, there may or may not be a god or gods existing, and we don't give a fuck to find out if they do. We just simply don't care. That's literally the definition of agnosticism and what agnostic is. So, but for him, when he refers in this context that he's doing here of Gnostic, he's seeing it as an actual like religious group, not a specific sect, basically, of religion. In this case, Christianity, early Christianity, not so much, or at least I understand it too.
You're absolutely right. It is.
Versus, you know, so an early Christianity group, aka something akin to, say, back then, Coptic.
Yes.
Or Miaphysite and Monophysite, which, funny enough, Mia and Mono are also technically Latin-based, because Mia means plural, and Mono means singular.
Exactly.
And technically that's similar to Gnostic Agnostic, because though they were officially religious sects of Christianity, early Christianity, and they were different, it literally only actually meant their names to this day. It still only translates to basically saying is that there's one, basically, it's like the equivalent to the ancestors to what we become Christianity's obsession with Trinitarianism. That's the word I was looking for. I was having a really hard time finding Trinitarianism in there for some reason. Yeah, because it's literally Mia Mono, or sorry, Mono Mia, so 1 2, and then I was literally talking about, you know, one nature, two nature. Yeah. So Physite is technically, or Phys, I should say, is nature, and then ite means follower of, or whatever, or believer.
Yeah, he's absolutely spot on that one. The fact, though, is
I'm just now realizing that means that I learned some basic, like, old Latin / Koine Greek without even realizing I actually learned it, just by looking up those two groups at one point. Yeah, that was actually ironic. And same with Agnostic Agnostic, which is really funny.
Well, the fact, though, is that it's this specific group, though, they were the early branch of Christian, and their thought pattern it incorporated itself into Christianity as a whole, or basically what we would call the Catholic Church.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that would, you could argue the same thing about the Mono and the Miaphysites, because again, those are the literal ancestors to Trinitarian. way of thinking, which is the most like old world Catholic, and still therefore they still have it. But you know, it was founded in the foundation of the founding of the Catholic Church in the first place. I can't remember if that was one of the things that like the Orthodox churches disagreed with. That was in that first schism.
That was one of them. Yes,
yeah, I thought it was, but it wasn't 100% sure. I know a lot of it had to do with traditions in that first schism, though.
Yes, one of them was definitely traditions.
Yeah.
You see, and that is basically what I'm addressing.
That was the one that happened in the 300s.
Yeah.
Well,
basically, I'm talking way before that.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah.
I know that Gnostics are well before that.
Yeah. They basically
they still existed technically as a religious group for hundreds of years after the biblical era, quote unquote.
Absolutely.
So in our modern calendar, they existed for at least a few hundred years after that, if not upwards of 1,000. But
absolutely.
But it was also mainly where actually the Nubians and the aforementioned Coptics and stuff came up in, which was there in Nubia, or later what would become Sudan and Ethiopia and Egypt. Yeah.
Well, the fact is, though, that thought process that they started, essentially, it made its way right into those early believers or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I actually, all right, so I have a theory regarding the church fathers, that some of the people that were in there were actually Roman pagans, essentially.
Oh, no,
Undoubtedly. They were trying to change the thought pattern and slowly bring it under the command of Rome, essentially.
Yeah. You know what's funny about this? We just talked about how that kind of shit keeps happening throughout human history earlier, right? Yeah. And we gave examples, including modern day in the last 26 years, apparently, right?
Exactly.
In the US alone, let alone globally, with different things. It's the same exact process. That, again, another exact perfect case point and example of that. Yeah. So that's, I wanted to point that out. I thought there was something else I was going to say about that, but my brain is just not. It's like once one other thought comes in, it's out the other one's out the thought.
When they did that, though, they literally changed a lot of the thought patterns. Mm-hmm. But the fact, though, is that for starters, they changed sin entirely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean...
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So, okay, yeah. So, when he was mentioning the pagan, that he felt like some of them were Roman pagans. They absolutely were. There was a lot of them in the early church that abso-fucking-lutely were, and that's why I correlated with that also thing of like what we were talking about earlier. It's just a perfect case in point and example of that. But there's endless reasons and literal actual traditions and belief structures in Catholicism specifically, and thus like modern, even Protestantism across the world, that proves that there's a ton of fucking pagans in there. And that even the rest of the leadership throughout each of the schisms that stayed were the ones who at least wanted paganism to be involved in some context. And I guarantee it was because they wanted to psychologically try to get upper hand on being able to actually give themselves a better chance to convert pre-existing pagans elsewhere.
Yeah. Rather
than having them uprise and fight them, because, a religion tends to lead to wars more often than not throughout history. But so I know it was a tactic and a strategy is what it at least originally was.
Yeah.
And I think over time it kind of evolved to where they realized, hang on a second, this has become a really good use case for control and maintaining this, because this gives people and our people a tradition that they feel that they can partake in and that it's kind of their thing and makes them happy.
Yeah.
Even though technically it's all fraud and for our control, because it keeps them subdued, basically, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you get Christmas, and that's how you get wedding showers and baby showers and wedding ceremonies in the way that they've had them since. And you have Easter, and you have all these other... They're literally every single major holiday of Catholicism and thus Christianity subsequently is literally a hijacked and completely rebranded and redone, corrupted pagan holiday. Every fucking one of them. Well, and it's so funny, but it proves that point, right?
Yeah.
That they wanted, after each schism, They maintained a leadership that wanted to maintain and keep this like paganism, hijacked, corrupted paganism in it.
Yeah.
Since the very beginning, literally.
Yeah.
So either there was pagans who were in there intentionally because they wanted to exert control in Rome, right? Which they succeeded in very quickly, actually.
Yes.
Because by then you ended up having the HRE. So like the Roman Empire fell, gave birth to Byzantium,
Yes.
right? And then what later became the HRE, the Holy Roman Empire. And that actually first, and the papacy, technically. And that was where it's always been in fucking Rome.
Yes.
The papacy is AKA the Pope, or
Well,
the
that
Pope's
is
land.
literally why I call it this.
So
Because
quite literally, Rome never actually really fell or died.
it really
It
did
reformed.
Exactly, dude. You see, that's literally why that is literally why I believe in that the final kingdom in Daniel 12, in Daniel 7, it never died. It basically, all right, so in and of itself, in Revelation, it talks about that the final kingdom, quote unquote, or whatever, or the dragon in and of itself was actually a beast in and of itself. And basically that beast, it had a head wound.
Yeah.
Indicative of a death in and of itself. But if you read the clear teachings in the Tanakh about what that beast was, it's just a kingdom. That's all that it is. So Rome has been steadily there from the get-go for the last 2,000 years. It just reformed in and of itself, for crying out loud. That's literally what I've been saying all this time. And they spread their philosophy,
It's a sales pitch and an export of a brand.
exactly. But here's
And if you didn't buy into their brand for a certain period of time,
Yes.
they would literally fucking genocide you.
they would destroy you.
AKA, they would inquisite you.
Yes.
It's just genocide. It's another word for, hey, here's our holy men.
Yes.
Kill all of you on behalf of our God because
Yeah.
apparently, benevolence, forgiveness, and being made in his image, and, all that good stuff. And knowing that it's not your fault that you're a sinner or whatever. And yet, he wants to kill everyone because that doesn't believe in him or that doesn't
Well,
believe
dude,
in
even
their
worse
faith.
than that, man.
Uh-huh.
Even worse than that. And this is part of the reasoning why I harp so much about that superstition stuff.
Yeah.
Because what they did was they developed a doctrine.
Yeah.
They developed a doctrine about spirituality. They said spirituality was this hidden revelation somewhere underneath the surface in and of itself. Well, to me, that's witchcraft.
What's funny about that too, with the spiritual aspect, is the fact that that's why to this day, like some people like me or other people, when we talk about spirituality, we feel the requirement to have to specify.
Yes.
We do not, it's irreligious or non-religious spirituality, which to me would be considered true spirituality.
Yes.
Because one's religion and one is spirituality. I mean, there's a reason why there's a differentiating set of names and terms, right? That we've had forever. And so that then ties into your point about how there's a lot of like Eastern philosophy, especially in Judaism, whatever else, because it pulls from that and then hijacks that too and twists it
Exactly.
into their favor. So literally it would be that they see that and they're like, well, what if we hijacked it for our own purposes for control
Yes.
and twisted it as hard as we can into whatever shape we want it to be to serve our purpose.
Exactly.
It's fucking stupid, but that's basically what it is. Yeah.
Well, even more so than that.
That's why they now call themselves spirituality, and spirituality is associated with religion and
Yes.
Christianity specifically.
Yeah,
Because of the hijacking.
exactly. It's technically Christianity that caused that in the first place. The fact is that
So, in other words, probably the fucking Roman Catholic Church again.
exactly the fucking Roman Catholic Church. They're the ones who caused it. Durr. The fact is though, what they did though, when it comes to that, in and of itself, they made things that were sinful that were not sinful.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Like, what was it called? one of the things that I harp on the most.
Well, for you, it's going to be back to the polygamy, really.
No, not just that.
The sex out of wedlock thing, I would imagine, right? Is one of the big ones.
That's one of the big ones.
Yeah.
One of the big ones, the biggest one is sexual desire.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
They teach that, what was it called? Sexual desire is technically adultery.
Yeah.
Well, that
and some take it a wild amount further, like Jehovah's Witnesses, where even if you're married and you're all both baptized and good little Jehovah's Witnesses, God forbid you decide to fornicate and copulate with your wife. If you or she touches your own penis or balls, or she does the same for herself or vice versa, that's automatically considered one of the worst sins you can commit. Because it's considered self-pleasure. Even though you might just be helping guide yourself into the correct hole of your wife. That you can't do that. And I'm pretty sure they've left that unaddressed since, which was like the 90s and 2000s. They were really gung-ho about that. They were constantly putting out all these Bethel like dramas and all these like different like annual meeting notes and shit, Watchtower articles, and they're like, this is why Jehovah says you can't do this. This is the end of the world. It's gonna bring Armageddon. You just about think they'd say, they didn't go that far, but they were like right there knocking on the door. They're like, would you like a pamphlet to our next memorial? Here, no, you're gonna call the police? Well, great. And you slam the door in my face. Well, here, we're gonna keep talking to you as if you're still at the door, and we're gonna shove this Watchtower and this Awake and this fucking set of pamphlets, and because it can't be just one, it has to be at least 3 different pamphlets usually, and we're gonna shove it all inside of your fucking door frame. And you know what? Here's a few more on your doorstep now because of the fact that just in case you want to spread the word to others, like your neighbors, can you tell I fucking hate that damn thing I was born into? But like, there is so many absurdly out there things like that, where they even take stupid shit like that and go 16 miles further. Because I guess that's rebranding to them, right? Because they rebrand everything too. It's not Passover, it's memorial, right? So on and so forth. They always have to. I'm surprised they never rebranded baptism at that point. You know what I mean? Because like, why rebrand everything else except for that?
Well, no kidding.
Like, you almost would think they'd also rebrand marriage to some other name, because you also cannot ever get married. Even a justice of the peace, technically, they've never wanted them to do that because, basically in their eyes, it kind of violates the doctrine and the baptism, because you only can have it done via a truly, the one true religion, aka somebody ordained in their own kingdom hall. Rebranding again, right? Because everyone knows it's a fucking church. Just because you make it look not like a church and you make it look like just a normal building/house does not fucking make it not a church. Are you a religion/a cult? Yes. Do you meet there for your everyday sermons? Yes. Congratulations. It's a fucking church. So therefore, what does that mean? Are they meetings, really? No. What are meetings, really? Church services/sermons. They're not talks. They're fucking sermons. Like, what in the hell is happening? It's like, you think about it's so funny because, like, ever since I was born into it and I was a kid and I really started to think about it, I was never mentally in, because there's such a term in Jehovah's Witnesses as PIMI and PIMO. PIMO is physically in, mentally out. So PIMO, PIMO. And then you have PIMI, which is physically in, mentally in, as in they're a fully devout person still. So that's, yeah. So, and I was always PIMO my entire life. Like, I just never bought into it. I was so bored. I hated every aspect of it. And I was always sitting there like, what the fuck are they saying? Even when I was a kid, I'm like, what? So like, because a lot of it's contradictory, a lot of it's stupid, and I've always been so observant that I'm like, this is the same shit. All of it's exactly the same as any other religion, and especially Christianity. Why are we sitting here pretending that you're so different because you'd call it something different? Like, the whole lipstick on a pig thing, proverbial example, right? They here's a pig. That's Catholicism and all the other false
Yeah, we're gonna
religions.
put some lipstick around
Yeah,
it
it's
and
all the
make
false
fun of
religions.
it.
Now
Yes.
here, look at ours. It's not a pig. It's Jehovah God's, priesthood, and it. Stop saying it's a pig with lipstick in a wig. It's not that. It's not a pig. It's God's will. No, it's just like, and even as a little kid, I recognize that. And I'm like, this is fucking stupid as fuck. Like, why are we pretending that this isn't the same thing, right? So like, my family ended up adopting this thing called Family Day. Because, it totally wasn't fucking Christmas/birthday things. So it was just like, we had the Family Day where we go out to places and we go get each other we just randomly give each other gifts. Kind of like a white elephant or whatever they call that thing again, right?
White elephant gifts.
Yeah, because like nobody necessarily knew exactly what to get anybody else, but we'd all randomly decide like, oh, this is what I'm gonna get for this person, this person, this person in the family, right? But their gifts, it's still in wrapping paper, right? You still have a meal with it, right? Like the whole thing is basically modern corporate / Catholic hijacked Christmas, right? Without all the extra tradition and all the other stupid shit and the decorations, but you have that. And so I'm sitting in / birthdays, and so I'm sitting here like, so this isn't, because we always like held it like a few days after my dad's and or my sister's and brother's birthday. Usually we tried to do that. So early mid-February, but it totally wasn't a holiday. It totally wasn't for the birthday. But like you could tell because of how people would talk, it's like everybody kind of knew it. That was bullshit. Like it's actually really funny because it shows the subconscious like dissonance of like and recognition of like this, we're living a lie. You know what I mean? Like we literally lie to ourselves and try to convince ourselves of our own lies just by simple rebranding purposes, right? So like we're literally doing that now, like my one point, and this was actually funny because this is super impactful in my life, right? And he knows about this. I don't think I've ever said this on the show before. This fucker naps all the fucking time, right? Because of my camping trip with him actually is really where I'm like, I'm borderline despise people who are able to nap. Like I genuinely may form a Nazi ideology specifically to eradicate all the nappers because fuck you guys. Because I'm like semi bitter about it and super like envious because I'm like, you don't understand how often I could use a nap. Like it would help, especially when I'm having a hard time sleeping at night. It's like it would help so fucking much in so many different ways for me. And I can't fucking nap. And the reason why is it's a weird psychological thing where and this is how this ties in, because you think, what the fuck does this have to do with anything? Trust me, it has everything to do with this topic. Because we went to my grandma's, or Gummy's, because it was that's what I called the grandma I lived with for 5 years, was my mom's mom. So we went to her place, and it was for a not Thanksgiving, but obviously Thanksgiving thing, right? So instead of having the traditional foods, because, that you got to make sure the rebranding purpose is believable in the lie that this is totally not Thanksgiving. Even though technically it's a family gathering that we never normally held, and it was literally like 3 days after Thanksgiving. And we're having it so that we can have this big meal, and that's what it is. It's a big meal and family gathering, so that way we can be thankful and make good memories, right? Over great food. So, rebranding. Because that's totally fucking basic Thanksgiving. I'm sorry, that's what it fucking is. Whether you don't call it that or not, that it's obvious to anybody with a fucking functioning brain, you're just rebranding Thanksgiving to give yourself the excuse to have that experience. Which I can't blame anybody if they try to do that, because when it's at that basic level of it, where it's, it's just about good memories, good time around family, people you love, you care about, with great food. And obviously, for me, the highlight's always the free food. So anyway, I'm a very big opportunist, but anyway, when it comes down to that shit. But anyway, so yeah, that's what it was. So I can't blame anybody if they want that, because that's something that I love. It's so much fun. Like Christmas for my family is, yes, it actually exists in our family, and we do try to do it on Christmas. But the thing is that we know it's not actually Christmas to us, because we don't believe any of the like, oh, Jesus was born on this day. Like I said, something about the fucking religious. There's none of the religious aspect, none of the pagan aspect. It's literally just that same basis of like, this is good food. good people, you know, people we care about and we love because they're our family members, and good times, right? And good memories and stuff. And we get to watch some shit, maybe do some puzzles or play some games. It's just chill, you know. It's amazing. I love those kind of gatherings, and so that's what we do. And technically, there's gifts exchange though. So my sister and brother still want to do it that way, which again, my sister, it's a whole different topic, but my sister is very much cliche in almost every way. She thinks she's extremely different and autonomous from society and trends. She is such a fucking trend follower. It's insane. That's why you know that she's fucking doing the gifts too, is because, like, you know, plus I think it's also because we never had anything like that growing up, right? So it's almost like a way to reclaim something that you almost wish you had.
Yeah.
So that way you can actually give it, you know, because it's not necessary, but whatever, you know, it's kind of neat. And I guess, yeah, at that point, it's related also because we don't lie to ourselves and say, this isn't Christmas, even though we're doing it on Christmas Day. And though it's technically not literally what Christmas is to everyone else, it is Christmas to us still, right? So we're like, okay, whatever, it's Christmas. You know, we don't lie to ourselves and rebrand it and be like, well, actually, because we don't have the traditions in it, it's not Christmas. It's fucking Christmas, you know? Anyway, so the point being for mentioning that, though, is that that day, and that not Thanksgiving, is that's where psychologically my brain said, you're never napping again. And you can't sleep unless your eyes are covered. Literally, like, it like traumatized, not me, it traumatized my fucking brain. So I had no say in this because I wasn't traumatized. I was fine. It was a little weird to wake up to my mom and my sister almost looming over me and looking at me with big smiles on their faces as I wake up, and I'm like, the fuck are you? I literally think, I didn't obviously say the fuck at that point, because I still refuse to allow myself to use profanity. But I was like, what the hell are you doing? You know, like what are you looking at me like that for? And my mom's like, oh, he's so cute. You're so cute when you sleep. And like, just my brain, as soon as it heard that, it's like, never again, never again, never again. And so like, literally, I cannot go to sleep. My brain will never let me know how sleep deprived I can be. I can go an entire night plus doing labor the whole day, 2 days prior. And my brain will never let me sleep unless my eyes are fucking covered now. My head and my eyes have to be completely covered. I can't see anything out of my blanket, or else it will not let me sleep. Because it's literally that traumatized. My brain is that traumatized from being looked at like that when I slept. Like, so that's what's funny about it. And so like, then I have the camp trip with this motherfucker, and I'm like, you piece of shit. Because I didn't get to sleep that first night we were there, so we had to cut the trip in half because we were going to stay 2 nights in the camping spot, and then we're going to head home, right? So it's a true camping trip. No. My I didn't get to sleep that night, partially because of the frogs were inconsistent in their cacophony, motherfuckers. I need consistency. I need that fucking consistency in sound. If I do not, in that kind of noise, if I do not have consistency, I can't sleep. My brain will not shut down because it wakens my brain, you know, and it makes it super active again, and I get agitated. Is what happens. I actually genuinely get like actual somewhat like minor anger that immediately spikes, and it's like, what the fuck? You're like, what? Why can't you be just consistent and robotic? Like, what the fuck, you know? And so it's a stupid psychological thing again. And so I can't sleep because of that. And also, this motherfucker is sawing down, clear cutting the entire state of Oregon to the ground. Like, again, this is why this is why I sometimes also harass him to get a sleep apnea test, because I guarantee he has mad apnea, because he did stop breathing multiple times during the night, and then it was just all of a sudden like, and for pretty long periods, and all of a sudden, you know, just the sudden gasping snore, you know, that's the loudest of them all. But he did that for like 9 straight hours, so I couldn't sleep because of those 2 reasons at all. Plus, it was really uncomfortable actually. Because I was on a slight slope, and that sucked. I'm like realizing like this is made for 1 person, not 2. But anyway, so point aside, right? He sleeps for 9.5 hours straight through the night, like instantly out like a light, the entire night without getting up once. Sleeps the entire fucking. Actually, I think you got up 1 time to go pee, but the moment you went back, the moment you lay down, I can literally hear you get to a point where you're fully laid down, and instantly you were snoring again. I'm like, this piece of shit. you know?
You motherfucking
And so,
piece
and I was
of
technically
shit.
okay with it at first in a way. I'm like, you know what, whatever. But, so I'm going on no sleep. He has 9.5 hours of sleep, plus whatever amount of naps he was doing that
Throughout the
day. And then I go and sit here and I'm like trying to function safely because I'm the designated driver too. I'm the only one with a license in the car. So like I gotta get us back safely. So that's why I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try this at first. I'm gonna try to see if I'll be okay. But then by the time we get back from Mount Hebo, which was really short, it was like maybe 40 minutes, 45 minutes we were up there before above the lake, because he was prairie dogging. And then he's like, I gotta do a thunder dumper. You don't understand. I am prairie dogging so bad. He literally came to get me like the probably third to half mile, to the mountain viewpoint. And I'm like, okay. And so we go back. And then he goes and does that. I, pull in. He immediately goes to the bath. I actually dropped him off to go to the bathroom now that I think about it. And then I just decided, I'm going to try with the windows closed, because at least at that point, I know his snoring won't be a problem for me anymore. Is I'm going to cover my eyes up, also for lighting issues at that point. I'm going to try to go to sleep, leant back in my driver's seat, because I felt relatively comfortable, like I could do it. So I got almost there twice, didn't quite succeed. Meanwhile, this motherfucker, the moment he comes back, he like looks around for maybe like a minute and a half around the campsite. Apparently didn't know where I was, but just gave up. I was like, whatever, fuck it. And he went into his tent, and again, the moment he's down on the ground, he's gone. And he's just snoring away for sawing,
Cutting the floor.
clear cutting the entire fucking state of Oregon to the fucking the fucking core of the earth. And I just jackhammering it out of existence. And meanwhile, I'm sitting here, still can't sleep. And so then I finally am like, fuck it. After like 45 minutes of trying in the car, I'm like, fine, I'll just go to the fucking tent again, see what happens. Almost fell asleep once. And that was like another hour. So you like had napped for like an hour and a half straight. And then you finally asked me, like, dude, are you awake? So I'm like, yeah. I almost acted like I wasn't awake, but I knew I was moving too much to be able to get away with a lie, and I'm like, fuck. I fucked myself at the worst time. And they're like, fine, yeah, I'm awake, And I realized, like, by that point, I'm like, it was probably like 10 something, like 10:30, 10:45. I knew we were probably going to stick around for a little bit longer, not counting packing up camp and everything in the car again. So, by that point, I knew it was probably about noon. We'd end up, noon 30, we'd end up in Pacific City. And so, because, we wanted to at least enjoy a little bit of time on the actual beach and the coast, which he didn't really do any of. In fact, he was pretty much stomping his feet waiting for me, just disgusted that I didn't tell him I was going to the actual fucking beach, because he couldn't find me, and he was just waiting over there, And even though most of the time he was actually in the outhouse, guess what he was doing the whole time? And he's just like, actually, you could tell he was genuinely fucking agitated at me when I finally came back. He's like, dude, where the fuck were you? He's like, and I got it on camera too. That's the best part. I'm pretty sure I got it on camera. But it's just like, I don't think I left in the video. I probably should have, just for this reference point. It's like, be like, have a clip I can just insert of his anger and my angst and the fucking thing. And you could just tell the whole time he was just like done. He's just like mad. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? It's like, what, you didn't end up like actually being on the beach? I figured that's where you were, but then I didn't see you anywhere. And you're like, so I figured you went back to the car by the time I got on the beach or something. And I'm like, well, whatever, I guess I'll still enjoy it. This motherfucker's mad. And then, and again, this was like now what, like 11 and a half, 12 hours of sleep. And then I go, that's just for the night and the naps, right? Or the nap, the first nap. And then once we finally start driving Pacific City directly home, this fucking piece of shit's already fucking snoring off again. And I'm like, are you seriously going to sleep and napping again? Are you seriously still tired? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, and that's the first time I finally was like, done. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck you, motherfucker. I'm the one sitting here just completely sleepless, and this motherfucker's snoring in the back again after 12 and a half hours of fucking sleep. And then finally he does that for like the first half of the trip, and then finally by the second like half or third of it, latter third, he's finally awake and he's interacting, whatever. And then he finally tells me yeah, between the summit of the Coast Range there on Highway 6, so the Wilson River Highway, coming back and Banks.
Banks. Yeah.
So he's literally, that's like maybe a 20-minute drive.
20 minutes.
If that, like, it's so fucking close. And he, halfway through that distance, he tells me, and you know what I'm going to do when I get home? I'm going to take a nap. And I'm like, you
Mother.
absolute piece of shit. You motherfucker. Like, how dare you? And so I like literally, I was just like reading him off every fucking nap and how long it had been and the sleep he had done before, you know, and how I had nothing.
Nothing.
And I had like 4.5 hours of mid to low quality sleep the night before we even took off to go on the trip. You piece of shit. You know, like, this piece of shit. And so that's the day he started creating a fucking villain arc for me when it comes down to napping people. You ableist fuck. That's something I realized recently. It's like, technically that's a form of ableism, so now I can actually use that as a joke, half serious. Like, you ableist prick. That's actually, I made a joke about that too recently. I'm like, if I ever go into stand-up, that'll be my entire fucking route. My entire fucking routine will just be you just eviscerating, napping people, you ableist pricks. It'll just be the entire thing, and I'll figure out a way to pull it off to where I can do an entire set. Even if it's like a 20-30 minute set, just doing that alone as a joke, kind of half Norm Macdonalding it, you know? I just feel like everyone will just be like going into it like, there ain't no way he's gonna make this whole fucking thing about this. And then by the end of it, they're actually like, how the fuck did that work? You know, like, I feel offended that I actually thought he pulled that off. Like, what the fuck? 30 minutes of ranting about the napping people. Pieces of shit.
The nappers are gonna get you.
Oh god, yeah. So that was the day I realized, like, these motherfuckers. That for me, by the way, is really good at summarizing. It's a really good summary for me. It's short for me. For anybody else though, who's like, what the fuck? That was forever. Like, did you need to go into that much detail? I'm like, yes.
Yes, he did. He is literally that passionate about about nappers. The nappers are gonna get you.
Fucking ableist pricks. But it's like but it's long enough now. I don't even remember what the fuck we traveled off of to make me talk about, because it was related. But what the fuck was it we were even talking?
Yes. Exactly. What the fuck was it even about, man? That's what I was gonna ask you.
What's really funny is the fact that I was literally gonna leave it at the example, but then you egged it on because you actually kind of half started talking about that part. And then you also gave me that fucking signature twinkle eye grin while laughing. You're like, you wanted it to happen. You wanted the story to happen. If I was gonna do it, you were gonna do it. So this is entirely your own fault. There's a chance we would have remembered what the fuck it was and gotten right back to the topic. But you still entertained by it as I am, in a way.
Yes, I am. I'm definitely entertained by it.
No, this must be said.
Yes, this
At the
must
cost
be
of the
said.
entire point of why this was brought up.
But you're gonna be. No, I'm not gonna say that. That's just horrible.
Napping Hitler.
Napping Hitler, yes. The napping Hitler.
All napping people must die. And then everyone else that's left would just be really grumpy ass bitches because they can't nap. Like,
Grumpy ass
everyone's gonna be
bitches.
just the adult versions of toddlers.
Well,
But now the question is, do we remember the fucking point of what we were gonna say after? Like,
no, we don't.
At least remember the topic of where we left off.
Yeah.
But some things have to go on a fire sale, and that was the first thing to go.
Yes. Well, okay, so the whole ordeal in and of itself sort of implies that they what was it called? In and of itself, when it comes to this, basically what you what you pointed out was actually dead on accurate. It was a rebranding.
Yeah.
It was definitely a rebranding. And basically, I'll tell you this one, and this is the thing that I harp at the most, because you see, the thing that I want most of all is I want people to understand most of all. So this is why I teach an awful lot about Torah observance and stuff like that, because the fact is, I really do not think that people understand exactly what sin is in that regard. I mean, I literally detested when they equate sexual desire to.
That's how we got off on the Jehovah's Witness aspect too. I think that was specifically it. Yeah, because remember I was talking about the fornication thing.
Yes.
I just suddenly started going on and on about all the different things that they do.
Rebranding, yeah.
Yeah. That's how we got here. Yeah.
You see, I don't understand that. And I literally believe that they set that up as a means of control, man.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Yeah, Rome.
Right. And I remember that because you were talking about how that's one of the biggest things, not the biggest thing for you, is the sexual aspects.
Yeah.
Sexual desire, repression, basically.
Yeah.
And that's why I mentioned the Jehovah's Witnesses, because they're the ones who take it 17,000 miles further than even the rest of Christianity tends to do it, which is super abstinence-based, stuff. This takes that and puts it on fucking steroids and meth, and is like, run with this. Yes. Take it as far as possible, because, which is funny because then Scientology takes it even further than Jehovah's Witnesses do. But it's really funny because if you watch, like, there's a Jubilee actually did a really fucking great video where they took ex-Scientologists and they took ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and they just had them sit down and actually, like, they asked them the different questions about their doctrines and shit and how they felt about it, and then, or what they experienced, and then had them, of course, what is it called again? Was that middle ground? I can't remember. But basically, it was a way so that they could compare to see how similar they really were. And that was one of the topics that both Scientologists and Jehovah's Witnesses emphasized the most and talked about the most, because they both hyper-emphasized this, like, control on sexuality and sexual desire and everything else. And so, like, Scientology takes it even further somehow than Jehovah's Witnesses do, but it allowed them to be, like, everybody walked up at once. That was one of the things that, like, every fucking person, all four on each side, walked up immediately at the same time, just with an emphasis, and, like, laughed about, because they're like, fuck, like, let me tell you about how this shit works with our cults, like, fucking hell. Yeah, and it's always control based though, but it's like, to anybody who pays attention, it's control by default, especially considering not just, if you, like, think about the biological aspect of it, like, it's the most natural fucking thing in the process of history. Not just humans, but also growing up, or being a living being, really, right? Is breeding is a natural, sex is a naturally autonomic, process that's going to, and that's the attraction and everything else. And those hormones are going to naturally process and be present. So, like, you think about that aspect, and thus you can see in that way, that's one way you can see how it's obviously about complete power and control over everyone.
Exactly.
But at the same time, if you're involved in it, whether you're born in, especially if you're born in, though, as a Jehovah's Witness and you're in it for a long enough time, like 20 plus years, God, do you ever have it ran into your fucking head the whole time? And it fucks you up, especially considering, a lot of times, in so many ways, but a lot of ways and a lot of times how it's fucked people over, including traumatically, is the fact that they literally talk you down, fearmonger against it so hard that, like, they make you think the world will literally fucking end the moment you fucking dare participate or look at any, or even accidentally see something you're not supposed to in that regard. So, like, even down to the undergarments of that other person, of the other sex, is considered to be detrimental, basically, sinfully. But especially if they're wearing it. So even if you accidentally, because, you grow up in a family, you're probably going to walk in on your mom or your sisters or their friends or something at some point in the bathroom, because people are inevitably going to forget to lock the fucking door. I mean, it's just how it works. Everybody's seen the bare ass of their dad or their grandma or their sister or brother or whatever else at some point, right? And so, like, or the underwear covered one, because maybe they got out of the shower and they're halfway through changing, or, getting clothed or whatever. But, like, but even that was, like, constantly fear-mongered against. Like, that literally, no matter what, that's, even if it's an accident, that is, you scrub that from your head, because that is one of the most detrimentally sinful things you can do. And it's like they have this hyper emphasis on that, to where, you know, like, you automatically, just by being who you are, knowing how biological processes with any living being works and how natural it is, that this is fucking for control. Like, but why, I don't know, but like, they're doing. And so, like, at certain points, that, along with just simply being a kid growing up as through your teenage years, you end up being traumatized sometimes, because, like, eventually most of these these JWs do what every teenager does, guy or gal, and they look up porn for the first time or something, just at least out of curiosity, because they're almost desperate for it, just to see, like, what will, like, will the world end, and, like, how the fuck, what about this is so fucking terrible, you know, that, like, it's practically gonna kill us all, you know, plus the usual hormone aspect that's gonna drive you to do it. And so, like, if you're caught doing that by your parents, and that's by the elders in your congregation, the amount of raking of coals you get for yourself for doing that is insane and intense. They become relentless, and they will pin it to you permanently as, like, in way to invalidate you and gaslight the fuck out of you and guilt you, because, like, how dare you, you know? And it's like, the fuck, you know, like, it's all stupid. So yeah, but you notice, like, how throughout Christian history, that's always been its huge obsession, except for a few sects, which are the ones that don't exist anymore, because they were damn near completely permanently exterminated and extincted by the Catholic Church's crusades. Like the Cathars, they were completely eradicated from existence. There hasn't been a Cathar since that crusade against the Cathars, because they literally killed every existing Cathar on this fucking earth with a intense prejudice. And one of the reasons why they saw them as such, not just heretics, but full-on heathens, is because, and hedonist, is exactly because they had a more hedonistic take on the sexuality aspect. So they actually did have a lot of sexuality aspects in their doctrine, but it was actually almost more promoting it. And even some of them were ritualistic, rather than actually doing the opposite of what the Catholics did and everyone else seems to do, which is, this is going to kill us all, don't you fucking dare. You know, like, that's why in Catholic schools and everybody to this day, they refuse to do anything but teach abstinence, and they wait until they're like 16-year-olds, and then they do it. And they're like, okay, here, don't have sex. All right, that's it. All right, let's move on. You know, like, how do you expect anybody to be competently functional?
Exactly.
If they don't understand how the basic
That's why I
functions work
literally
either,
believe
too.
They don't want them to be functional in that regard. They want them to be obedient little worker bees and stuff like that, where they just focus on the hive.
You can see how it directly correlates and matches the modern corporate feudalistic world that we live in.
Exactly.
Because that's another thing, right, about this.
Yeah.
Right? Is that everyone believes that feudalism died.
It did.
And so the serfdom, therefore, because technically feudalism and serfdom are the same thing, never fucking did. Slavery is gone. That's not true either. It just simply rebranded and changed.
Yes.
So now you're a corporate you're a cog in the corporate machine from the day you're fucking born to the day you fucking die. Everyone is. AKA, you're a literal fucking slave to the global economy. And thus, admittedly, to your government. Because that way, they can then, you have a job from the day you're born to the day you die. Hey, we can collect a bunch of fucking taxes. Tithes. Off of you fucking peasants. You serfs. Feudalism. So where even, it's not just how the world works in the system of how we see life now, you know, and what's required of us, going to school, learning what they teach you to be taught, right? Getting a fucking job, working literally every fucking day of your life.
Yeah.
Getting a house. All these different things are literally constructs of the system to make them continue to maintain full, complete dictatorial control over your life, and even to an extent, your fucking thought processes, your mind, and everything else, your beliefs. Because those are beliefs that everyone holds. Why is it? Because the system's working as intended, aka you have been indoctrinated. it's effectively therefore a type of a cult, not just a religion in a way. And so literally the entire world works for the corporate religious scheme, basically, because everyone's a slave by default in terms of the job as being married to your job from the time you're born to the day you die, because obviously school is literally to make you a good obedient worker bee from the day you're born to the day you die for the corporate machine, and thus technically the government. That's why they have to convince you that you have so much power in your voice and in your petitions and your voting and everything else. When again, they're the creators of the system, so naturally they know, obviously, they're lying to everyone. But they got to do that to convince you so that you still are an obedient
Little worker bee.
yeah, who matches the mold of which they need your mind and your beliefs to match in order to be a consistently obedient, cooperative, non-argumentative worker and also citizen. And it's the same, therefore, politically. And religion does the same shit, in a way. If you think about it. It's the same process.
So I'm going to tell you something.
So, has feudalism died? Fuck no. It's just rebranded. It has a new coat of paint.
So, dude, back in ancient times, in the when the Canaanites lived, in that regard, basically, essentially, there's one of the things that we find in archaeology and also the what was it called, in scholarship in general, is the fact that the gods, quote unquote, were not just in charge of the people in the behaviors, all of that stuff. They were also in charge of the economics aspect. In fact, back then there were times when the kings were actually viewed as gods.
Right. Exactly. And then you can see how it's continued throughout all of human history since then, or even before that, really. But, especially since then, in that context, because then you eventually had the Catholics come along in form, and they pretty much immediately became the global bank.
Yep.
Ironically, and who probably will hate hearing this, but yes, the Jews have been trying to compete them for the world banking process the entire fucking time. They're like, no, that's our job. Money. Anyway, but yeah, so basically, into just the world global economy, they've always been fighting for that fucking superiority complex. The problem is that the Catholics got the head start. And they had the global dominance in terms of the colonial powers, what would become the colonial powers, to then spread that to the rest of the world. So they literally, which is kind of akin to earlier points that even both of us made, which is that the Catholics were actually a brand. They always have been. And so they're basically like a product. And they were exporting themselves. They were looking for people to export them to the rest of the world, aka get converts. And that's how the Jews have never really been able to pull it off, taking over for them, to where to this day the Catholics still run pretty much everything economically, just about. The Jews are right behind them, but they can never get past that shadow in front of it, because the Catholics have had way too big of a start, and they had the whole system was already kind of in place the whole time, well before them, right? So now they dominate everything economically. To this day, you won't find more money in any bank in the world outside of the Vatican.
Good point.
So, yeah. It's really fucking stupid.
It is.
But that said, though, I really think... No, I'm the first time I'm the one who's going to do this. We really should end the episode.
Exactly.
We're going to go on for the rest of eternity, apparently.
Yes.
Today. This is a very lively and good one today.
Yes, it is.
Very hyper. This might be one of the most lively, if not the most lively, at least I've felt during an episode the entire time.
Absolutely.
And I feel like you've been. Like, I can feel it inside my chest, like the vibration and like the vibes, or the feeling, the tingling almost of like how much I've been expressive this episode. And I can say with you, and I'm just like, this has been an intense episode in the best way possible, I think.
Absolutely.
You know? But I also was realizing this like 30 minutes ago. I'm like, this dude ain't fucking doing what he normally does, which is like, oh, we should end the episode here. When I could feel it, I knew it was at least 2 hours in, if not longer. And you always, like, right before the 2 hour mark, start looking at the phone when you record with the lapel mic. And you're like, we should end the episode here. But I was thinking about it because I'm like, I think I smirked a little bit because I was like, this motherfucker isn't doing it because he's super into this topic. This is his passion type of topic. So he's not even thinking about how long this has been.
No, I'm not even thinking about it.
Meanwhile, I, for like the last, like, I feel like hour has probably been sitting here like, I think we've probably passed 2 hours.
Easily.
I'm going to guess that we're probably between 2 hours and 45 minutes and 3 hours into
Absolutely,
an episode
man.
here.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna actually take a look just really quick. Actually, I don't even do it here. It says an hour and 27 minutes, and it was an hour and 5 on the recording before, but it dropped 10 minutes or so. So we've actually been going for 2 hours and 40 minutes. I was 5 minutes off. That's it.
Wow.
Looky there. I can't remember if I have said this in an episode. I think I have once, but
We have.
I've remarked about this recently a lot, though. I have a weirdly good sense of time, and I have no reason for it. It's just an innate skill that I have, or sense. I guess it's a sense, really, is what it is.
Yeah.
I have an innate sense to, like, know how long something's been.
Yeah.
Sometimes literally on the exact head. And it's just, or the same with, therefore, the actual time it is in a day.
Absolutely.
And I'm just like, what the fuck? I always, like, cackle, especially when I get, like, right on it, because I'm like, this doesn't even make any sense. It just felt like it. And I'm like, yeah, here we go. And then you look and it's like, yeah, it's literally exactly what you said it was. Like, what the fuck? You know, like, how do I even explain that to myself? You know, like, that's wild. Which actually, now that I think about it, I didn't actually finish my point for mentioning earlier, but the driving thing I was talking about, this correlates with this, so I'm just gonna mention this here because it's obviously a very quick thing. It's not very involved, but it goes to show, and this is the energy spiritual thing a little bit as well, right? Is that for some reason I was just innately born to drive. It seems like I just was automatic to where even my brother, who's like super anxious when he knows he's with that kind of driver that I mentioned earlier, right? That we knew. And then also with a newer driver, he like literally does the ghost foot, the ghost brake and gas pedal, mainly the brake thing. And sometimes he'll like go and almost grab for the ghost steering wheel, right? Like he just does it absent-mindedly because he's like, fuck, you know? And so it's super funny because he was doing that, of course, while he was trying to teach me the basics of driving before I went into my classes with an actual trainer in the parking lot out here and stuff. And he's like just shocked the whole time. He's like, how, like, you're natural. He literally told me I'm a natural at it. He's like, this dude's really fucking good at this shit, you know? And so he's told me multiple times since, he's like, you're actually genuinely a really good driver. Like, you're one of the best ones I've actually ever been able to actually say, like, I've witnessed or know. But, you know, and I'm like, and did I have any reason for it? Fuck no. I just apparently was automatically great at parking and driving. And I'm just like, and again, you know, part of that process is you have to learn the size of your car, right? Its footprint, including in turns, like everything, right?
Yeah.
So that you know, you're visually aware of that spatial awareness. So you don't crash, you don't hit anything, you don't, you know, bump a curb or whatever else.
Yeah.
And that was just automatic for me, apparently. And it's like I'd never been in a car, a station wagon in my life. And I just, as soon as I sat in it, boom. You know, and so like another thing is the time. Somehow I just naturally am elite at detecting the time and or how long things have been. It doesn't make any sense now, does it? Like if you have to explain it, it's like you can't. I can't explain it to myself because it doesn't make any sense. But it proves that you can just be born innately skilled at something.
Yes.
For seemingly no reason.
Absolutely.
And so that's definitely I think that ultimately proves that that's also energetic as well. It's a vibrational thing of like, that's why some people are just automatically skilled at something that they have no business being skilled in.
Yeah.
Just by default. Like they're literally born skilled at various things. And there's a lot of examples of a lot of people who do that. And it's just like, you know, and it's like, how the fuck do you do that? And they literally don't know. They're literally born that way. And it's like, what? Like, So it also proves you don't have to have to experience you don't have to have experience necessarily or go through lessons and classes and teachings to actually automatically know and be great at something.
Yes.
It does actually prove that. And I know we've actually argued about that back and forth before.
Absolutely.
But that's another way you can kind of prove that is absolutely true.
True.
Right? Because like the thing is kind of like the quantum stuff, right? The spiritual stuff of like the levitating monks and stuff. You feel like a schizophrenic still though, because it's like how you have to be able to explain it, right? So you can understand it. And it's like, no. It's not something you can explain or understand. It just isn't. Look at this slouch, by the way. I'm speed running arthritis. But anyway, I'm trying to die like my grandpa apparently on my dad's side. Anyway, but yeah, anyway, that's the episode.
Yep.
Basically about a 3-hour episode unedited. So it'll probably, in my experience now, having episoded 4. I meant editing 4 episodes plus the special episode.
Yes.
I can probably guess this is going to be edited down to somewhere between 2 hours 15 minutes and 2 hours and 30 minutes long. It's probably about the length of this episode that you're going to be listening to and or watching right now. But anyway, thank you so much for watching the Off the Cuff podcast.
Yes.
Off the Cuff. Like that, in fact. Because I didn't expect myself to do that. But anyway, talk about Off the Cuff, because this episode was that as well.
Absolutely.
The funny thing is, he started both of the episodes that have been fully off the cuff, where we're just like, which is actually, ironically, the last episode we recorded was that way too. I just handed him the well, in that case, the keys, because we were just using the phone. But in this case, we handed him the mic and off and running. Just like that.
Absolutely.
I'm going to also mention I don't know if you remember this or realized this. I didn't mention it during the episode, but when you first brought up Superstition, I immediately kind of smiled because I'm like, I swear I remember you actually earlier this week, I think it was like last Sunday, you had brought it up and said we should talk about Superstition in an episode. And now we did. So, well, not directly, but but it's kind of hard to talk about Superstition directly because it's,
Well, no kidding.
well, kind of incomprehensible and by its nature because it doesn't make any fucking sense.
No kidding.
But anyway, right, I was about to say, I was going to interrupt my point. What were we talking about? The Clips channel. We have a Clips channel now. I am very slowly pacing myself after doing like a day, I think it's 2 days straight of editing down the special episode part of it, and then episode 3 into clips and then uploading them and everything because it's so time consuming. And then also editing these episodes is super time consuming. And then you have to think about how many hours it takes to record these things, which is average about 2 hours. And so it's like, you put everything together, I'm averaging about 12 hours with all time put together per an episode. And now I add the clips editing together, and that's even more time I'm spending, right? So I'm trying to pace myself on getting the clips out. So it doesn't have a specific schedule, and I kind of clip dump like 5, so far it's been 5 to 6 clips a day.
Yeah.
When I have them to dump there. But either way, it's a great way to get bite-sized pieces of each episode because you're getting literally, like, it's even a perfect reference tool, that channel. Because whether you don't have the time to listen to or watch a full episode, or there's something in an episode you watched or listened to that you were like, I want to reference that to somebody. Like, I want to talk about it and be like, well, what I heard here is, or whatever. Or like, you should just listen to this, or whether it's referral to the podcast or referral to the topic at hand. Because that makes it a great referral tool in that way, right? So now instead of having to sift through an episode and try to relocate whatever it is a segment or something or a topic you wanted to reference to somebody or even reference to us, you can just refer to the clip instead on the channel because it's not just clips, it's going to be highlights, it's going to be obviously segments from the podcast. Yes. So it's a much more bite-sized, more digestible way to get down into episodes. So if you don't want to just follow the chapters, so the timestamps on YouTube on these episodes to split up your listening, your watching, which again makes perfect sense to spread out the time, like I'm trying to do with the clips editing itself, right? And output is that which I have to get better about admittedly, but that's why it's totally understandable, because especially for me, because I really get it just on this side of the fence from you. I'd actually recommend you split up episodes, especially when they're longer like this. But effectively, you can do that via the timestamps there, or again, you can just say fuck it. I'm gonna wait until the clips are out for that episode.
Yes.
So I can watch each individual segment or clip that releases, so that way I can literally more fine-tuned control the amount of time I'm actually spending on this shit. Because ain't worth it.
No kidding.
Probably. Because most people, again, in this feudalistic world, are slaves to the day they fucking die for the corporate machine.
Yes.
Yay! I hate everything too. Anyway, that said, that is literally it once and for all for this episode. So once again, thank you so much for watching and joining us on the Off the Puff podcast.
Off the puff. Puff.
Yeah, apparently. Off the cuff, I am falling apart, apparently. Off the Cuff podcast. And until next time, stay safe out there or don't. As always, it's your choice. Is there anything that you want to mention or shamelessly self-promote?
No.
You don't even want to talk about the book anymore again?
No, we've already addressed it.
Wow. Wow, he's not opportunistic. Okay, fine. Rude. I was trying to do something that would push people off the episode immediately. Damn these fuckers and always these YouTubers and self-promoting. Fuck you.
Fuck you.
And this episode has been brought to you by this scam here. Established titles. Honey, BetterHelp. Insert any other one you want here. No, that'll never happen. If it does, kill me. Please just kill me. It's not worth me existing anymore because I violated all my moral principles. Okay. And see you later. Bye-bye.